Chapter 470. Fatty's physique is special, and he has the 5 elemental spirit body. Indeed, pills, talismans, arrays and weapons are easier for him than sword techniques. But because of this, sword techniques have become his only weakness. I Ching said in a low voice. Father Nyo can see this, so can Fatty's enemies. And he can't do anything about sword techniques now. He can't even fly a sword. This may have something to do with his physique. Even if he learns other spells, not to mention sword cultivators. Even if he meets cultivators who are good at sword techniques, I'm afraid. Defeated instantly. Shening finished. Yes. I Ching nodded, and added a few more plates of pastries on the table. Then he continued. So, Father Nyo's purpose in urging Fatty to learn sword techniques is not to improve Fatty's cultivation, but to let him quickly familiarize himself with sword techniques, so that he can understand how to deal with sword cultivators in the future. Oh, I see. What's more, the earlier he starts training his sword techniques, the better. Even if he can't understand sword intent immediately, it's good to let his body form natural reactions. If he learns something else first and gets used to other attacks, it will be very difficult to change back. This was also why sword cultivators were always stronger than other cultivators. Oh, Shening nodded. Simply put, sword cultivators are close combat sorcerers, while other cultivators are long-range sorcerers. Yes, I understand. No, now I'm the one who doesn't understand, Master. But are you sure it's not because Fatty uses up too much flying sword that Father Nyo let him learn this on purpose? That seemed to make sense. Sigh. Father Nyo treats Fatty differently indeed. Chef, what if we become orphans? Sob sob sob. I Ching. What to do? Father Nyo wasn't here. Did he have to continue acting with Master? It was so hard to be a boyfriend. Under Father Nyo's violent suppression, Fatty finally passed the first level of the sword array, and successfully entered the second level. Lomun's expression, which was getting colder by the day, finally softened a little. Then without hesitation, he doubled Fatty's daily training. Of course, there was also Rabbit. Fatty's heart was barren. Not a single blade of grass grew. He suddenly felt that the days when he first started abstaining from food were the days when he was in paradise. But it was gone in an instant. Fatty's face was full of despair. Before he could plunge into a new round of hell, something big happened in the Demon Monarch Palace. Demon King of Shilin? Lone Moon glanced at the bitterly laughing rabbit on the ground. What Shilin demon? Aren't you the Demon King? Could it be that someone dared to usurp the throne? No. Rabbit shook his head forcefully. I'm only the northernmost demon monarch of the northern woods. I manage the area that is tens of thousands of miles away from the Spirit River. The southern lands are vast, and I'm not the only one in charge. In other words, you haven't unified the territories here. Lone Moon frowned. You can say that. Rabbit's ears shrank back weakly. How many demon kings are there in the entire southern region? Back then, he only cared about finding a quiet place to stay, so he didn't know much about these things. Rabbit was also a sensible person, so he wouldn't bother him with the matters of the demonic beasts. On top of that, Fatty was an insulator to swordsmanship, so he had no time to care about anything else. There are a total of 7 demon monarchs, Rabbit answered honestly. The Tiger King and Bear King of the southern woods, the Leopard King and Lion King of the western woods, the Mermaid Clan of the East Sea, and the Feather Clan of the northern woods, plus the former Wolf King. This time, the demon monarchs of the western woods are the Leopard King and the Lion King. They want to snatch your territory. Yes. He wanted to cry. Then let's fight. Lone Moon replied. They were all demon monarchs, and it wasn't a one-on-one fight, so the strength of each side should not be weak. At most, the leader would be left to Chef. No way, Great Immortal. Why? Great Immortal, have you forgotten? Rabbit lowered his head aggrievedly, and his voice became weaker. Originally, the Northern Woods was the strongest among the 7 races. But a few months ago, Great Immortal killed all the high-level demons in the Northern Woods. Now there aren't many high-level demons in the Northern Woods. So if they really had to fight, the Northern Woods was the weakest. The Western Woods also found out about this, so he directly came over. The corner of Loneman's mouth twitched. He almost forgot about this. It seemed that the powerful demons here were all in Chef's pot. So he let Rabbit be a commander without an army at that time. Cough that. He coughed. What's the situation over there now? The Leopard King and the Lion King have already led the demons under them to the border of the northern woods. I reckon that in less than a day, they can attack the Demon King Palace. Let's go, I'll go take a look. Lone Moon stood up. Just as he was about to say that he would accompany Rabbit to take a look, he glanced at Fatty, who was practicing swordsmanship at the side, and twisted his leg. His expression darkened instantly. Anger rose in him at once, and he immediately changed his mind. Fatty, you follow too. Huh? Fatty was stunned. Follow where? What huh? After practicing for so long, we have to try it out in actual combat. With that said, he turned and glared at the two idle people at the table. And you two prodigals come along too. Prodigaling. Prodigal Ziqing. Meow meow meow? Was Father Nio's teacher's anger now starting to attack indiscriminately? The group of 5 then flew towards the border of the northern woods. From afar they could see a black mass. At a rough glance, there were at least thousands of demons gathered. All of them looked murderous, and their cultivation levels were not low. There were even several 10th level demon beasts in front of them. The leaders were indeed 2 12th level demons. One was a leopard demon, and the other was a lion demon. They were about to work together to break the northern woods array formation. On the other hand, on the northern woods side, there was not a single demon to fight. Occasionally, a few appeared, but they were busy running for their lives. It looked especially desolate. No wonder Rabbit said that they could not beat them. In such a situation, not to mention gathering a demon army, it was difficult to find a few demons that could fight. Seeing that the northern woods array formation was about to break, Lone Moon directly flew down with a string of burdens and landed in front of the 2 demon kings. The demon array formation, of course, did not have much technical content. It was good enough that it could last for 5 minutes. Seeing the sudden appearance of these few people, the 2 demon kings stopped for a moment. Sweeping a glance at them, his gaze fixed on the only demon at the side, Rabbit. Instantly he laughed maniacally. Ha ha ha. You are the rabbit demon that ascended to the position of Demon King? A mere 8th level rabbit dares to call yourself a Demon King. Rabbit subconsciously wanted to retreat, but he resisted. Lion King, Leopard King, why did you barge into my northern woods for no reason? Why? Leopard King laughed. Have you become stupid from eating too much grass, Rabbit? That Wolf King used to occupy such a good position in the northern woods, because he had many wolf cubs under him. Now that he's dead, of course this place belongs to me. You are just a little rabbit demon. How dare you take the opportunity to call yourself a king? If you know what's good for you, hurry and get out of the demon palace. Otherwise, he suddenly revealed a mouth of sharp teeth sinisterly. We will eat you. He was clearly eating carrots. Chapter 471. After the Panther King finished speaking, he roared deliberately and used his claws to break the North Forest array formation. Suddenly, a gust of wind with wind blades came towards them. The rabbit's whole body stiffened. Under the huge pressure, it could not move at all. Lone Moon grabbed the rabbit and just managed to avoid those wind blades. Such bad breath. Shening subconsciously covered her nose. Did all small animals like to breathe at people? They were not paper planes. Having missed the rabbit, the Panther King's face darkened. Only then did he look at the few people beside him. Following that, his eyes lit up and were filled with desire. Human cultivators? He had long heard that a few human cultivators from the southern land had killed the Wolf King and destroyed tens of thousands of demon soldiers. But he did not believe it completely. Killing the Wolf King might be true, but how could it be possible to kill tens of thousands of demon soldiers? It was definitely because the rabbit demon released fake news to protect itself and wanted the other demon kings to retreat. Other demons might not be clear about the level of human cultivators outside the southern land, but as a demon king, he knew. Those who could enter the southern land were probably not of low cultivation. They were likely to be soul formation or traveling immortal cultivators. If it was a one-on-one fight, he might have some reservations. But now that there were so many high-level demons here, the other party could only become food in his mouth. The more the Panther King thought about it, the more pleased he became. The way he looked at Lone Moon and I Ching was as if he was looking at a big meal. After eating these two people, he would definitely be able to rise to the 13th level. At this thought, he instantly lost the mood to talk and ignored the rabbit demon. While the Lion King was not paying attention, he directly pounced towards Lone Moon. This human cultivator is mine. Seeing that his sharp claws were about to pierce through Lone Moon's chest, suddenly a white light flashed in front of him. The Panther King only felt a chill in his hand. The hand that he had just stretched out suddenly fell to the ground with a thud. In an instant, it turned back into a meat claw, and even rolled twice. Ha! The Panther King was stunned for a moment, completely unable to react, until a huge wave of pain hit him. Only then did he cry out. He directly rolled on the ground, and turned back into a huge leopard, letting out a roar. All the demons. What just happened? Why did the king fall before they could see clearly? After a while the Lion King, who was the closest, was the first to react. Instantly he released a sky full of demonic chi, waved at the demons and said, "Kill those two human cultivators." Only then did all the demons rush forward. Lone Moon frowned, his heart full of annoyance. Originally, it was already troublesome enough to have a stupid disciple. But these little animals still came to find trouble. His expression darkened instantly. He turned and shouted angrily, "Chef." In the next moment, I Ching's body flashed and he flew out. With a wave of the sword in his hand, a huge wave of sword chi slashed towards the ground. There was a loud rumble. The entire ground cracked as if there was an earthquake. In an instant, a 4 to 5 meter wide crack appeared. It was as if the entire forest had been split apart. All the demons who were roaring and pouncing over suddenly froze, and were instantly dumbfounded. There was a strange silence. For a moment, the entire forest was filled with only the Panther King's cries of pain, and the sound of the monsters falling into the cracks. That sword just now, if it had struck them. The demons did not dare to think about it. Bean-sized beads of sweat flowed down from their foreheads. "Die, die, 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 run!" It was unknown which demon shouted, but it directly woke up the group of demons who were frozen, and they immediately ran away. Because the high-level demon beasts were all standing in front, the 5th and 6th level demons, behind them, naturally could not run as fast as the high-level demons. So there was a big stampede. The demons in front all fell, and in a moment, there were several layers of demons. "Chef, stop them. I still have a use for them," Lone Moon instructed again. I Ching nodded and flew up obediently. Master said that Father Neo was going through menopause recently. For the sake of food expenses, he had to give in to him. He raised his hand and conjured a seal, summoning a sky full of spirit swords. They fell down like rain and set up a sword array. In an instant, thousands of demons were surrounded inside. There was no way out. The demons were stunned. Lone Moon turned to look at Fatty, and revealed a teacher-in-charge smile. "Fatty, you can start your daily training." Fatty, who had been watching happily, was suddenly called out, and his whole body trembled. What training? Let's start with this old and weak one." Lone Moon did not care about him, and directly walked up to the Leopard King, who was rolling on the ground in pain. He raised his hand and conjured a seal, stopping the blood from its broken claw. "Leopard Demon, if you can win, I will let you go." With that said, he threw the sword in his hand to Fatty behind him. Win who? Fatty, who caught the sword reflexively, was dumbfounded. Looking up, he saw a 3-legged giant leopard roaring, baring its fangs, leaping towards him without using its claws. "Mas, as his master." It was for real. He was wrong. Enidia was an immortal realm, and the sword array was not hell. This was, Shining. Rabbit. He felt that he should pretend that he did not exist now. 8 months and 4 days after entering the southern land, Fatty, who had finally passed a level of the sword array, began his actual combat career. So far, the number of sparring partners, 8,000. Progress was very slow. Perhaps actual combat could really train one's sense of crisis. Fatty, whose sword skills were terrible, was slowly turning the corner. Although he was still despised by Lone Moon, at least he could use his sword skills to avoid the killing moves coming towards him. To reach this level, he had spent nearly 5 years of time. And the demons of the Celestial Forest had also been sparring partners for a full 5 years at the edge of the forest. At first, they still wanted to escape, especially the Lion King who had the highest cultivation. But after being poked a few holes by Chef's sword array, they became well-behaved. They even built houses and nests on the spot. The entire sword array seemed to be developing into a small demon town. At the beginning, Lone Moon would pull a few small demons from the array every few days to sparring with Fatty. Fatty always lost at the beginning, but slowly, the more he was beaten, the tougher he became. A 0, so the level of the demons sparring with him became higher and higher. Towards the end, the small demons of the 5th and 6th level were no longer useful. Seeing that they had been well-behaved all these years, Lone Moon waved his hand and let the small demons out of the sword array. But the strange thing was, those small demons that left the array were cheering at the beginning, but after a few months, they ran back eagerly, saying that they were used to living in the sword array and could not bear to leave. Some demons even said righteously that their wives and children were all inside. If they went out alone, it would be too undemonic. So they begged Chef to open the sword array and move back. Such situations became more and more frequent. Lone Moon simply asked Chef to remove the sword array and let those demons go. But in the end, not many demons escaped, and even lined up for Lone Moon's roll call every morning. Those who got called would beat Fatty. Those who didn't would disperse and do what they were supposed to do, as if they had long gotten used to such a mode of survival. Even the way the demons greeted each other was the same from the beginning. Did you cultivate today? Did it turn into you beating Fatty today? Lone Moon. He felt that the group of demons that came aggressively to snatch territory was just an illusion, that this group of demons was just a group of people. Chapter 472. The 360-degree change in the minds of these demons actually had something to do with the new demon king, Rabbit. And the cause was due to his cowardice. After the Shilling demons were trapped, Rabbit was quite happy at first, but slowly realized the subsequent problems. Although Great Immortal was supporting the demons now, he didn't need to be afraid that those Great Immortal would come out of the array one day and settle scores with him. But in the future, what if Great Immortal left in the future, and they put all the blame on him? Even if his cultivation rose by then, he wouldn't be able to defeat a Rabbit. Those were all high-level demons, not to mention the dozens of 10th level. The key was that there were 11th and 12th level demon kings. As a Rabbit at the bottom of the demon realm, he couldn't sleep all night. He couldn't even concentrate on his cultivation. In addition, Fatty, his revolutionary comrade, was brought to battle. Rabbit trembled in fear for a month, and after a whole month of nightmares, he finally couldn't help but move a small stool to the border of the Shilling Forest. As he sat beside the sword array, he started to brainwash those demons. No, it was advice. Let me tell you, you can't even imagine Great Immortal's cultivation, just give up. Wolf King is a good example. Let me tell you, Great Immortal was kind to you this time. Do you know what happened to the last batch of demons who offended him? Gone. Not just killed, not even their corpses were left. All of them were on the table. Let me tell you, Great Immortal hates demons eating humans the most. That's why I became a demon king. If you become vegetarians now, he might spare your lives. Let me tell you, we demons shouldn't be so irritable. Eat a carrot to calm down. Think about it. As long as we're alive, everything else is just a carrot. Let me tell you, you've been locked up for so long. I know you're hungry. As demons, I feel sorry for you too. I can't do anything else, but carrots are enough. If you want to eat grass, I can pull some for you too. Let me tell you, there are many benefits to following Great Immortal. Do you see these demon cores? Great Immortal rewarded me, 1 a day, yes. You heard right, 1 a day, as long as you're obedient. Let me tell you, don't think that I'm almost 10th level now, but 2 years ago, I was just a 7th level Rabbit. It's all thanks to Great Immortal that I managed to ascend so quickly. Let me tell you, Great immortals said that when demons eat human flesh, they will be stained with blood and resentment. Even if they can raise their cultivation in the short term, they will be struck to death by heavenly lightning when they ascend. Think about it. It's been tens of thousands of years since the last demon ascended. This is all because of cannibalism. Let me tell you. At first, none of the demons paid any attention to it. But as time went on, there were bound to be a few foolish demons who believed it. Coupled with Loneman's cooperation, even more demons believed it. And because Rabbit would send them carrots, vegetables, and grass from time to time, more and more demons were sold, and began to accept the rabbit as a demon king. Even the 12th level Leopard King and Lion King became polite to the rabbit. This recognition did not disappear, even after the sword formation was lifted. Rabbit, a demon king who had not even reached the 10th level, had strangely obtained the recognition of all the demon clan, and became a demon king in name and in reality. Furthermore, he had become a demon king by relying on his mouth. 5 years later, Fatty, who was used to being beaten up, could already withstand the attacks of an 11th level demon king. His swordsmanship had also improved by leaps and bounds. Although at most he could only be considered a body, a pui, a combination of a 5-element cultivator and a sword cultivator. But at least he was more durable. Definitely not a body cultivator. Only then did Lone Moon cancel the daily demon activity of beating Fatty up. He carried Fatty back to the demon palace and threw him into the sword formation again. He stood guard outside and allowed Fatty to be beaten up in the array. But suddenly, without the chattering demons around and the brainwashing words of Rabbit, Lone Moon felt that something was missing. So, he locked Rabbit in as well. Rabbit? What the F***CK? _. Perhaps with the foundation of being beaten up, Fatty quickly passed through the 2nd level of the sword formation and successfully entered the 3rd level. Then, he was stuck again. This time, Lone Moon did not use his cold eyes to baptize Fatty. Instead, he changed from sparring with demons to sparring with himself. He personally beat, no fed moves. Fatty's face, which was as fat as a pig's head, never recovered. With a pig's face, and after practicing swordsmanship for more than 10 years, Fatty used practical actions to prove that the constitution of being immune to swordsmanship really existed. Even Rabbit successfully rose to the 11th level and passed through the 8th level of the sword formation. He was still stuck at the 5th level. So when Fatty finally passed through the 5th level, Lone Moon did not continue to force him to enter the 6th level. Instead, he directly removed the 10th level of the sword formation. Then he officially began to teach him alchemy, talisman arrays, weapons, and the art of taming beasts. Although the 5th level of the sword formation was nothing to a sword cultivator, to Fatty, it should be able to withstand the beating of a sword cultivator. That day, Lone Moon engraved some 5-element spells, as well as the cultivation techniques of array cultivators and talisman cultivators into jade slips, and gave them to Fatty. As for alchemy, which was costly, time-consuming, and could not be used in battle immediately, he could learn it last. As for the art of taming beasts, all the demon beasts in the southern land knew that he was a good friend of Rabbit Demon King. There seemed to be no need to learn it. Next was refining weapons, which Chef was more familiar with. He originally wanted Chef to engrave an inheritance about refining weapons, but he did not find anyone in the kitchen. Only then did he remember that he had not seen those 2 little rascals for a long time. He subconsciously released his divine perception and scanned the entire Demon King palace, but did not find any familiar aura. Where were they? He looked around the back hall, but still did not see anyone. He could only take Rabbit out. Great Immortal Shen? Rabbit was stunned for a moment, then realized that he was asking about the other 2 great immortals. Aren't they eating in the back hall? I just looked, there's no one. Lone Moon's face darkened. To be precise, there was no one in the entire Demon King palace. Did they sneak out to cause trouble again? This I don't know. Rabbit shook his head. But 4 hours ago, I saw the 2 great immortals drinking tea in the pavilion beside the front hall. Maybe they. Before he finished speaking, Lone Moon had already turned and walked toward the front hall. Indeed, from afar, He saw two familiar figures sitting in the pavilion. One was nibbling on pastries, and the other was pouring tea. But they did not speak, and their expressions were a little stiff, looking a little unnatural. Lone Moon stopped in his tracks, his face instantly as black as the bottom of a pot. Aren't the two great immortals here? Rabbit, who followed a step later, opened his mouth subconsciously. I said great immortal, you don't have to. Before he finished speaking, Lone Moon directly waved his hand, and a wave of spirit chi swept over. In an instant, the two people in the pavilion flashed with white light, and directly turned into two pieces of white paper in the shape of a human, swaying and floating down. The teapot that was still in Chef's hand fell onto the table with a plop, and water splashed everywhere. In the next moment, an angry roar immediately sounded throughout the entire Demon King palace. I want to break the legs of those two wastrels. Rabbit. Is it too late to slip away now? Chapter 473. Lone Moon flew out of the southern land angrily. If killing intent could hurt people, there would be no one within a few hundred miles of the southern land. He was really angry. He worked himself to the bone to teach his disciples, but those two little bastards actually went out to have fun behind his back. They even made two dummies to fool him. Just whose plane is this? Hello. He guessed that he would spend all his money on this trip, and the key was that they didn't call him along. A degree. Damn it, he wanted to break off his father-daughter relationship for the 1000th time. Such a daughter could be taken by whoever wanted her. Buy one get one free. Lone Moon rushed all the way to the nearest immortal city, thinking that it would take some time to find those two wastrels. But not long after he flew out of the southern land, he saw a figure flying toward him. Two silhouettes were hurriedly approaching. Their speed was extremely fast, and a cloud of dust was kicked up behind them. Shunning ran in front, still biting a biscuit in her mouth. She pulled Chef with one hand, and grabbed something with the other as she ran. Before Lone Moon could react, Shunning found him first. Her eyes lit up, and she ran directly toward him. Dad. Neo. Dad. Those three short words made her feel as if she had seen her savior. She stopped in front of him and smiled brightly. Father Neo, we've missed you so much, she said, smiling brightly. We've missed you so much, Father Neo. A day apart feels like 3 years. Chef followed up with a sentence. You are indeed the best Father Neo in the world. There is only one, no other. Father Neo is the best in the world. Father Neo is immortal. Your name will be remembered forever. Enough, you two are singing a duet. Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He glanced at them coldly, suddenly having a bad feeling. Tell me the truth. What trouble did you two get into this time? Nothing. Both master and disciple shook their heads. Lone Moon glanced at them coldly and said, Hee, I'd be a fool to believe you. It's true, Father Neo. You have to believe me. Shunning blinked. We only bought a little food. As she spoke, she pinched her thumb and index finger, making a small gap, and directly stuffed a paper bag in her hand. Lone Moon reflexively took it, but before he could take a closer look, an angry voice came from the front. They are here. Catch that swindler. Everyone, hurry up and stop him. Don't let him escape. Another one. They must be in the same group. Let's beat them up together. As he spoke, dozens of fierce-looking strong men flew over from the sky. Some were holding swords, some were holding magic tools, and some were holding kitchen knives, spatulas, and aprons. Before he landed on the ground, he directly attacked in the direction of the three people. Then, with a few thuds, they were repelled by the arrays around them. Lone Moon was shocked by them. The paper bag in his hand loosened, and in an instant, a thick stack of paper slips fell out and scattered all over the ground. He could faintly see that between a few of the recipes, there were all black and white promissory notes. His heart turned cold. He turned and glared at the two identical innocent faces beside him. You two wastrels, what did you do this time? The master and disciple looked up at the sky, pretending not to know anything. But those people had already landed, and directly surrounded them tightly. As they picked up the weapons on the ground, they panted heavily, all of them looking like they wanted to come over and cut a few times. Let's see, where can you run to? The one in the middle panted especially hard. and he was the cultivator with the highest cultivation level among them. As he panted, he pointed in their direction and said, You guys wait for me to catch my breath first. Lone Moon. I Ching. Shening. Lone Moon frowned. He glanced at the people present, only to realize that their cultivation levels were not high. The highest was only at the late stage of golden core. The rest were only at the foundation establishment stage, and even chi refinement stage. In an instant his expression darkened even more. He turned and glared at the two again. Chef and Shening. A manager and an assistant, two cheats. How did they manage to be chased all over the ground by a group of low-level cultivators from the lower realm, who were not even at nascent soul? How shameless could they be? The master and disciple continued to look up at the sky. Today's weather is not bad. It's a suitable day to eat cook. What else could they do? They were in the wrong. Fellow Taoists. Lone Moon took a deep breath, suppressed the urge to beat up the two, cupped his fists and said to the crowd, I wonder how my two friends offended all of you, to make all of you chase after them? If it's a misunderstanding, why don't we sit down and talk it out? Stop talking nonsense. The golden core cultivator, who finally caught his breath, glared at him and said, You're with them, aren't you? Everyone, don't listen to him. We'll talk after we capture them. The moment he finished speaking, the others once again raised the Dharma artifacts in their hands, conjured hand seals and made moves, directly attacking the three. It looked like reasoning would not work. Lone Moon frowned, directly released the suppressive force of a soul formation cultivator. In an instant, a huge pressure swept towards the crowd, covering the sky and covering the earth. The people who were just shouting to kill were stunned, their bodies stiffened, unable to move. A few cultivators with the lowest cultivation even directly knelt down directly. The scene was instantly silent. Cold sweat broke out on everyone's foreheads. The golden core cultivator in the lead was even paler, his face full of disbelief. Soul formation, supremacy. How could this be possible? They only cared about chasing after the two people. Did not think about anything else. They did not think that the two swindlers actually knew a soul formation supremacy. Now can you tell us what exactly is going on? Everyone. Lone Moon's suppressive force was only released for a moment. Naturally it would not be good to directly fight before things were clarified. Only then did the angry expressions on everyone's faces disappear. They looked at each other for a while. Then the golden core cultivator gritted his teeth, stepped forward and replied, This supremacy, we did not mean to offend you. It's just that your two friends destroyed the treasures that we painstakingly collected for many years, and even smashed our pill room. Those are our life's work. As if thinking of something, some anger ignited in his eyes again. He glanced at Lone Moon, suppressed it and said tentatively, You are a soul formation supremacy. You must be a fair person. Even if they are supremacy's friends, I'm sure you will definitely allow us to seek justice, right? Lone Moon's expression darkened. He turned back to look at the two behind him. What did you do? Nothing much. Shening replied, We just accidentally burned some radishes. You shut up. Lone Moon glared at her, then looked directly at I Ching. Chef, you speak. I Ching glanced at his own master, then replied, That, master, and I just went to buy some snacks. Then along the way, we learned some new dishes. In the end, we accidentally burned the kitchen. What kind of kitchen? A kitchen where elixirs were kept. Father Neo, don't worry, we gave you spirit stones. Shening raised her hand and added. Chapter 474. You're talking nonsense. As soon as he finished speaking, that golden core cultivator immediately said angrily, They didn't burn the kitchen at all. They clearly used that deviant fire to burn our entire pill room. Not only that, there were many finished pills and rare spirit herbs inside, all destroyed by this liar, this person. The others also began to accuse one after another. That's right, there was also the nascent soul pill that I spent a lot of money to buy, all burned by him. Yes, and my 1,000-year spirit heaven grass, and 500-year green spirit wood. And mine, my benevolence fruit. And mine. Supremacy. The golden core cultivator took a step forward. He seemed to have found his courage and asked in a deep voice, These two people destroyed our elixirs and spirit herbs under the guise of learning how to make gourmet food. They even burned the alchemy room we built together. Their hearts are really vicious. Even if you are a soul formation supremacy, you can't be partial to such evil people. Otherwise we will definitely sue Howran Court for justice. The others also responded one after another, resuming their previous aggressive look. Loneman's expression darkened. He scanned the crowd, then glanced at the cookbooks on the ground. Then he roughly guessed what was going on. You mean to say that these two friends of mine were originally here to ask you for advice on cooking? That's right. A cultivator wearing an apron stepped forward and said, "My Drifting Fragrance restaurant is the most famous restaurant in Immortal Bien City. The first place they entered was my restaurant, and they ordered more than 10 of our signature spirit food dishes. I originally thought that they were sincere in learning, so I passed the recipe to them out of kindness. I didn't expect that this was not what they were after." With that said, he even snorted coldly at I Ching, seeming to be very angry. "Our drunken immortal restaurant too. And us." The others also started shouting, looking at Chef like they were looking at enemies. "According to you guys," Lone Moon said in a low voice, "he not only cheated you of the recipe, but also went to burn the pill room that you built together, and destroyed all your spirit herbs and pills." "That's right." Everyone nodded hard, all of them looking righteous and angry. The more Lone Moon listened, the darker his expression became. Suddenly, he lifted the corner of his mouth and revealed a half smile. "So now, do all the cultivators think that I have a good character and don't have a temper? So you can fool me as you please?" With that said, he released his suppressive force once again. This time, he did not hold back and directly pressed down on everyone. Immediately, the surrounding cultivators all fell to their knees, as if they were under great pressure. Even the golden core cultivator at the very front was the same. His face paled. "Supremacy, what do you mean by this?" "What do you mean?" Lone Moon laughed coldly. "Do you think I can't tell? I don't know who you are, but this friend of mine is a chef. When it comes to cooking, even 10 of you can't compare to him. As long as he has tasted a dish, he doesn't need you to teach him. He can cook it exactly the same way. You actually dared to say that you taught him the recipe out of goodwill. Humph. Ridiculous." Everyone's expression changed, and their eyes started to drift. "What do you mean by imparting recipes?" Lone Moon glanced at the pile of promissory notes on the ground and continued. "You must have discovered that he could tell the cooking methods and ingredients of every dish. You were unwilling to accept it, so you relied on the fact that you had more people and tricked them into buying your recipes, so that you could cheat him of all the spirit stones he had. Am I right?" Everyone's faces started to turn pale, and they did not dare to make a sound. "Let me guess. What else would happen next?" Lone Moon's smile became colder. "You discovered that although he could taste the difference between dishes, he might be able to taste the difference between pills. So you went all out and brought them to the alchemy room. You wanted him to taste the pills, and then tell you the pill recipes, so that you could obtain some pill recipes that other sects do not teach to outsiders?" Everyone started to break out in a cold sweat. "Not only that, you even had the sudden idea that since he had some talent, why not let him try refining pills directly? But you did not expect that he did not know how to refine pills at all. Not only did he not succeed, the pills that you wanted were accidentally burned by him, and the entire alchemy room was destroyed." His eyes darkened, and he swept a glance at everyone. "Everyone tell me, am I right or wrong?" All the cultivators' faces were pale, as if they had been exposed, and they could not lift their heads under the suppression. "You lied to my friend first, and then tricked him into refining pills. You actually dare to ask me for justice. How shameless of you." The moment Lone Moon's voice fell, the suppression increased by another layer, and several people with lower cultivation levels were already directly lying on the ground. "Supremacy! Supremacy! Please calm down, supremacy, please calm down." The people who were still angry and arrogant just now hurriedly begged for mercy with a look of horror. "We were muddle-headed for a moment. That's why we did such a despicable thing. Supremacy, please forgive us on account of our first offense. We won't dare to do it again." The others also began to beg one after another. They had long since lost the confidence they had when they were chasing after him. They really didn't expect that with just a few words, the other party would see through their plans so clearly. Forgive you. Lone Moon snorted coldly. Just now, because of this matter, you wanted to beat and kill my two friends, didn't you? Why is it that when it's your turn, you want to forgive me so easily? Do you think I'm protecting you? The cultivators trembled and became even more terrified. This was a soul formation cultivator. He could turn them into ashes with a flick of his finger. So they trembled even more violently and started begging even louder. But something flashed in the eyes of the golden core cultivator in the middle, and he immediately said loudly, "Supremacy, please, on account of the Chi family, spare us. We're just disciples from the alchemy sect." What sect? Lone Moon subconsciously wanted to refuse, but his sleeve was tugged. His eyes darkened, and then he said with some hesitation, "Since that's the case, I cannot do anything, but you bullied my friend and swindled his spirit stones. What about the matter?" We're still. Yes, it was originally his. We were foolish. Return it all to him." Everyone's expressions relaxed, and they immediately took out their storage bags and began to dig out spirit stones, their eyes occasionally sneaking glances at the few people in the middle. As a qualified profiteer, Lone Moon naturally recognized the underweight look in their eyes. Hence, he added, "Oh, I forgot to tell you that I've already made a mistake. The spirit stones that my friend brought out were temporarily lent to him by me. You guys better not count it wrong. Try missing a piece from me?" Everyone's hearts turned cold, so they dug out even faster, not daring to miss a single piece, and even stuck a few more pieces. They were afraid that if they did not tally, the other party would find them for revenge. Only then did Lone Moon retract his suppressive might. The cultivators trembled with fear as they finished digging out spirit stones. "Supremacy, we promise that we will not dare to do such immoral things in the future." Lone Moon responded. "Then we will not disturb supremacy, we'll take our leave first." Everyone bowed and turned to leave. "Wait," he suddenly said. Chapter 475. Everyone shuddered and had to turn around, revealing a smile that was uglier than crying. "Supremacy, what other instructions do you have?" Lone Moon smiled at them like a spring breeze, scaring all the cultivators into lowering their heads. Yet he waved his hand, and all the notes that fell on the ground flew into his hands, forming a thick stack. "Since these recipes are meaningless to my friend, then there's no point in keeping them." His eyes darkened, and his smile became even more commercial. "Didn't you say that these are your signature dishes? Then let's redeem these recipes." Redeem? Everyone hesitated. "Yes, don't you sell recipes? We don't need them anymore. Can we return them?" Everyone looked confused. Although that was what they said, they had already refunded the money just now. But seeing his serious expression, they did not dare to refute, and could only grit their teeth and nod. Yes. All right, I won't cheat you. Just return them at the original price. The prices are all written on these lists." Lone Moon picked up one and read, "This is Aroma Restaurant's secret braised spirit beast meat. 1,500 superior grade spirit stones. Chef, go and collect the money from the boss." "Yes, Father Nyo." I Ching immediately took out his storage bag and walked towards the person who was still wearing an apron. "Oh right, if you don't have spirit stones on you, it's all right, you can sign an IOU first." He waved the stack of IOU in his hand. Everyone. They felt so uncomfortable they wanted to cry. What kind of criminal gang was this? Lone Moon spent an hour before he returned the stack of IOU in his hand one by one, and replaced it with a new batch of IOU. Of course those people owed him. The IOU written by cultivators was different from those in the mortal world. These IOU were bound by spirit power, which meant that unless he voluntarily rescinded it, or he died, it had to be returned. Otherwise it would damage the cultivation of the person who made the contract. He roughly counted. Shening and the others could bring at most 2 months of food expenses, which was 20,000 superior grade spirit stones. But now he had at least 1 million spirit stones, which meant that he had more than 50 times the original amount, And that was without counting those IOU. Father Neo, you're amazing. Shening immediately clapped. Chef paused for a moment, then started clapping along with Shening. Father Neo, #1 in the world. Scram. Lone Moon turned and glared at the two of them. Don't think that I won't settle the score with you just because I got the money back. Normally, no matter how wasteful a meal was, it would not exceed 2 mid-grade spirit stones. In just one day, how did you guys manage to spend tens of thousands of high-grade spirit stones and owe a huge debt? Father Neo, don't mind such details. Details my ass. How could a few 100,000 spirit stones be *king details? Do you really think you have a mine at home? Yes, Fatty has a vein pearl. Shut up. If he had been any slower, even if he had a mine, he would have gone into debt. These two prodigals. Oh. Lone Moon kept the newly earned spirit stones in his hands. He had decided there would be no food allowance for the next month. Taking a deep breath, he regained his senses and said in a deep voice, "Tell me, what did you discover? You want to deliberately provoke the anger of those people and force me to play this kind of lousy show with you?" If he had not blocked in front of them, the two of them would have exposed their gloating performance just now. Although they were two cheaters with no integrity, they were not idiots, especially Shening, who was a person with a high IQ. There was no way she would fall for such an obvious trap. What's more, Chef was here. In other words, they did it on purpose. Don't say that. Weren't you very happy when you were counting the spirit stones just now? What's wrong with me collecting some spirit stones? Don't actors need to pay to appear? Celebrities' appearance fees were easily tens of millions. Him collecting a few million spirit stones was already considered cheap. Yes, Father Neo is the best actor. Everything he says is right. They were just poor beggars. What exactly happened? It's those elixirs. I Ching took a step forward and explained in a low voice. Master and I originally wanted to go to Immortal Bien City to buy some snacks. On the way, we met an injured cultivator. He asked us to go to a pill shop at the end of the street to buy a bottle of superior-grade qi nourishing pills. So we went to buy one for him. Is there a problem with the elixirs? Lone Moon asked. There's no problem with the effects of the elixirs. They are indeed qi nourishing pills that nourish qi. This is a common elixir used to replenish spirit qi. But we found that there was an extra medicine in the elixir. What medicine? Soul nourishing grass. What? Lone Moon was stunned. Isn't the soul nourishing grass a 7th-grade spirit herb? The qi nourishing pill is a 1st-grade elixir. Using a 7th-grade spirit herb to refine a 1st-grade elixir. Did that alchemist have too much money? Or did he not pay attention during the refinement and put it in the wrong place? Or was the elixir placed together with the soul nourishing grass and contaminated with spirit qi? I thought so too at first. I Ching frowned and continued. But I tried to use the true phoenix fire to purify the impurities in the elixir. But the entire elixir turned into ashes. How could that be? Lone Moon was stunned. Your true phoenix fire should only be used to burn impurities like elixirs. Wait. He stopped mid-sentence and his eyes widened. Could it be that the elixir was not the leaves of the soul-nourishing grass, but the soul-extracting powder? Yes. I Ching nodded. Shit. Lone Moon shouted silently. The soul-extracting powder was also made from a part of the soul-nourishing grass. The soul-nourishing grass was a very special spirit herb. It only grew in places with dense yin qi. Although it was rooted in yin soil, its leaves were the main ingredient in refining the soul-nourishing pill. The soul-nourishing pill nourished the spirit and cultivated the soul. It was mainly used to strengthen the divine perception, and also had the effect of repairing the primordial spirit. That was why it was an 8th-grade elixir. But the roots of the soul-nourishing grass were the exact opposite. The roots gathered a large amount of yin qi. Eating it would damage the divine perception, and in serious cases, the primordial spirit. And the soul-extracting powder was a powder made from the roots of the soul-nourishing grass. The amount of soul-extracting powder in that elixir was very small. There was no way to detect it at all. I Ching continued. It was because Master said that the elixir was smelly, that he asked Master to analyze it. That little bit of yin qi will not affect your cultivation. At most, it will leave a mark in your divine perception. So, Lone Moon looked at the two of them and narrowed his eyes. You deliberately used the recipe to make such a big fuss. You wanted to enter the elixir room of that shop to see if there was soul-extracting powder? That's right. I Ching answered righteously. Father Nyo, we put in a lot of effort. Shenning looked serious. Effort my ass. Lone Moon exposed her directly. Forget about chef. Do you think I can't tell that you actually did it for food? Don't mind such details. What details? If you have the guts, don't hide the storage bag. Open it and let me see. Shenning immediately took out the storage bag behind her and secretly stuffed it to chef. She shook her head decisively. What snacks? She had no guts in the first place. Do you think I'm blind? She already said it was snacks. Chapter 476. Father Nyo, we heard that most of the pills sold in that shop were made by themselves. That's why we decided to go to the pill room to take a look. I Ching continued. Master and I have checked that pill room. There is no soul guide powder. The problematic pills were all formed pills. And the boss said that the pills were specially made by someone else, and that they were the only ones in the entire immortal city. But he refused to tell us where they came from. So, you directly burned those pills to lure those people out? Yes. Even so, this has nothing to do with us, right? Why do you care about such things? Although the act of mixing soul-guiding powder into pills to destroy one's divine perception was indeed too evil, there were so many cultivators in the world. There would always be a few with bad intentions. They could not possibly care about everything. And when the time came, the heavenly Tao would naturally settle the score. Moreover, didn't you say that the amount of soul-guiding powder used was very small and would not affect cultivation? You could have found a chance to expose it. Indeed. But the strange thing was that the seriously injured cultivator specifically asked us to buy the pills from that shop. I Ching frowned. I originally suggested that he buy the spirit molding pill. The spirit stones were not much different. But in his case, using pills to restore the damaged meridians would be more effective. But he refused. You mean? Lone Moon hesitated. That cultivator might have known that there would be soul-guiding powder in the pills? I Ching nodded. Impossible. Why would he deliberately eat this kind of pills that are harmful to divine perception? Is he crazy? And didn't they say that the cultivator was still seriously injured? Did he want to die faster by eating this kind of thing? Wait. Then what about the cultivator? He left after eating the pills. I Ching's expression darkened. But his injuries were very serious. His foundation was already destroyed. A bottle of qi nourishing pills could not even save his life. Even if he was fine, I'm afraid he would not be able to cultivate in the future. At that time, I found it strange, so I left a tracking spell on him, but 2 hours later, he directly took out a talisman, only to see that the original golden talisman on the talisman had turned black, and there was a faint trace of death qi floating around. He's dead. Lone Moon stared blankly at the talisman. He realized that although there was death qi, there was no murderous aura. In other words, he committed suicide. Isn't his mental endurance a little too weak? It was better to live than to die a good death. Just because he couldn't cultivate anymore, he committed suicide? If that was the case, why would he still need to buy elixirs? No, Father Nyo, take a closer look. I Ching handed the talisman over. Lone Moon took it and subconsciously searched for the trace of death qi. He found that there was a faint trace of life in the death qi. It was the life of a newborn. Holy shit, he reincarnated? So fast. No, this speed. His soul hasn't even entered the netherworld yet. But he's already reincarnated. Yes. I Ching nodded. For him to be able to reincarnate so quickly, it must have something to do with the soul extraction powder. Perhaps there's more to it. Lone Moon's frown deepened. If that was the case, then they had no choice but to do something. All living beings in the world had to return to the netherworld through the river of forgetfulness, and then enter samsara for no other reason than that no matter how long the soul stayed in the world, it would be damaged. Apart from the three of them and Shorty, no one else could see this. The soul rolled in the river of forgetfulness for no other reason than that it needed such a long time for the soul to return to its complete state. Immortals with high cultivation in the immortal realm indeed had the ability to send people into samsara. For example, when Chungu sent his mental demon into the world, he also did so without returning to the netherworld. However, such a soul was not complete. Shorty was fine because she was Mengpa. Other people might not notice any problems if they occasionally interfered with samsara 2 or 3 times. But the more they interfered, the weaker the soul would become until it completely disappeared. This was definitely not normal. What's more, a person's merits and demerits in the world were clearly recorded by the heavenly Tao. In the next life, which small world they reincarnated into, what kind of qualifications they would have, were all determined by this. If one interfered with samsara, it was equivalent to indirectly interfering with the rules of the heavenly Tao. The heavenly Tao was like the most precise calculating machine. Although it could also correct errors automatically, occasionally there would be people who interfered with samsara, and karma would be reflected back to those people. But if there were too many of such bugs, even the most precise machine would make mistakes. The heavenly Tao could not calculate all of them, and it would be strange if it was not messed up. It seemed that the reason for the power of the rules of this small world being messed up was not just because of Fatty. Perhaps it had something to do with something else. It's a pity that we did not find out where those elixirs came from. I Ching sighed. Lone Moon thought for a moment, turned and summoned his spirit sword. Let's go. Where to? Wasn't returning to the southern land in that direction? Nonsense. Lone Moon waved the IOU in his hand and threw 2 words back. Collect the debt. I Ching. Shining. Investigating and earning money at the same time, he was indeed Father Nyo. Lone Moon felt that Chef purposely hid his cultivation and burned the pill room and some completed elixirs, but did not lure out the people behind the scenes. It was entirely because those people did not take the 2 of them seriously at all, or this bit of loss was nothing to the people who refined these elixirs. If it was the former, then the appearance of him, a soul formation supremacy, might be enough to cause the other party to be wary. He was afraid that it was the latter. Then this matter would be even more troublesome. That proved that the problem of this world was shockingly serious. The 3 of them did not fly very quickly. After all, when those people signed the IOU, Lone Moon said that he would give them some time to raise the spirit stones. So the 3 of them spent an hour before slowly arriving at Immortal Bien City. Lone Moon flipped through the stack of IOU in his hand and took out the one with the largest amount. He casually asked for directions and walked towards the biggest restaurant on the street. Before entering the restaurant, he saw the Golden Core cultivator, who was leading the group just now. Supremacy! Supremacy! That person was shocked. His expression changed instantly. How did you get here so fast? Collecting debts naturally has to be fast. Lone Moon waved the IOU in his hand. Why? Do you want to renege on your debt? That person's eyes flickered and immediately returned to normal. No, I dare not. He did not show any intention of reneging on his words or reneging on his debt. The 3 of you, please come in. He respectfully invited the 3 of them in and even prepared tea. Supremacy. That cultivator smiled with a fawning expression. Just now when we returned to the city, I already sent people to gather spirit stones, but hundreds of thousands of superior-grade spirit stones is not a small amount. Supremacy, please wait here for a while. The people who collect the spirit stones should be back soon. With that said, he hurriedly gave a look to the person beside him. That person waved his hand, and a waiter walked in with more than 10 plates of spirit food, one by one placed on the table in the middle. You must be tired from the journey. This is my shop's signature spirit food, stir-fried with high-grade spirit fruits and spirit vegetables, full of spirit chi. I hope Supremacy will not mind. Chapter 477. Lone Moon glanced at the dishes on the table, his eyes darkened, but he had no intention of moving his chopsticks. No need, we are not here to eat. Yes. The man smiled more carefully. The spirit stones will be ready soon, very soon. He carefully looked at Lone Moon's face. Something flashed in his eyes, and tentatively suggested, Senior, as a soul formation supremacy, your time is precious. You can't waste too much time on small people like us. There are many people who owe Supremacy Spirit Stones. How about I make a trip on behalf of Supremacy and ask them to send the Spirit Stones here? Lone Moon looked at him ambiguously, but did not reply until the man's face became paler and paler, and cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Lone Moon smiled and nodded. Okay. The man breathed a sigh of relief. I will go inform them now. With that said, he hurriedly retreated and kindly closed the door of the private room. Soon, there was a sound of rushing downstairs. The restriction on the door has been activated. I Ching glanced at the door. Well, I felt it too, Lone Moon said indifferently. He didn't want to return the spirit stones, and now that he is back in his own territory he won't. Now he is probably busy getting reinforcements to deal with us. No matter who came later, it must be related to those elixirs, so he would look for this leader from the beginning. Anyway, we are here for this, let's give him some time. Lone Moon glanced at the dishes on the table, and surprisingly found that Shening did not move her chopsticks. Foodie Shen, you can actually resist not eating? Ah! Shening, who was lying like mud, was stunned, glanced at the spirit chi feast on the table, and said righteously, I don't eat vegetarian dishes. As a foodie, you actually have the face to be picky. But I Ching stood up directly, waved his hand, and put away the vegetarian dishes on the table, and then replaced them with fragrant meat dishes. Master will probably fight later, and it will consume too much energy. Why don't you eat these first? Muddy Shin instantly leaned against the wall, picked up the chopsticks, and started to eat energetically. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched, and he directly gave her a look. Even if we fight, it won't be her turn, right? What the hell is she doing? Chef, who was taking out the food, paused, stiffened for a while, then said seriously, spectating also requires physical strength. You just can't find a reason for her to slack off. Stamina my ass. You brainless fan. Also, where did you get these dishes from? I made it while I was being chased by them. Lone Moon. You even stopped to cook a few dishes in the middle of your escape. Just how careless were you guys just now? Huh. Wait a minute. Based on the cultivation of those people, they would not be able to catch up with them at all, much less Shening, who was using cheats. Then they just happened to bump into him, because Flip's table. Degree, they were deliberately pushing the blame onto him and dragging him down with them. They were definitely doing it. These two wastrels. Father Nyo. Shening, who was eating, suddenly paused and looked straight in his direction. You're on the wall too. What wall? Lone Moon glared at her. Don't talk about the wall. I'm about to be angered to the heavens by you guys. The wall across the street. She pointed behind him with her chopsticks. Lone Moon paused and turned to look. They were sitting on the second floor now. Behind him was a window that faced the street. At this time it was half open. Through the window, he could see the opposite side of the street. There was a sign erected with two display talismans on it. The picture on the left was of a man in white robes with black hair. He held a fan dharma artifact in his hand. It was exactly the same as him. Above the picture was a row of big red words. Soul Formation Evil Cultivator Wanted, Dead or Alive. Holy shit. Lone Moon stood up directly. What was going on? Fatty is beside you. Shening pointed to the other display talisman at the side. Indeed, the picture on it was of Fatty, but it was not a red immortal sex wanted notice. Instead, it was a notice to look for the sect master of Divine Imperial Sect. Faintly they could see the words, held hostage by evil cultivator, dead or alive unknown. Reward for clues. And the two display talismans were a little old, as if they had been pasted for a certain number of years. Even pasted on the wall together. You guys are so fated. Fatty was indeed special. Fated my ass. Keep your Fujoshi look away. He was wanted by the entire immortal sect, alright? Wait. He glanced at the notice again. Why is it only me and Fatty? What about you guys? It was clearly the three of them, who went to Divine Imperial Sect to save people together. Why was he the only one wanted? Forget about Shening. Anyway, others can't see it. Why isn't even Chef here? Chef thought about it seriously. This should be what Master often talks about. Character? Get lost. Mother****. Based on the current situation, those people had long seen through his identity. That was why they gave him the spirit stones so readily. He had been anxious to find the two cheaters who ran away, so he did not hide his appearance beforehand. He almost forgot that when Divine Imperial Sect took Fatty back to the sect, they had a conflict with him. More than 10 soul formation cultivators and traveling immortals had fought with him. Then it was normal that Fatty's disappearance would be the first suspicion on him. A soul formation cultivator of unknown origin. This was a little troublesome. They originally wanted to investigate that soul extraction powder. Now it seemed that the person the boss would call over would not be the pill refiner, but the people from Divine Imperial Sect. Indeed, before they finished their meal, more than 10 auras of soul formation cultivators flew over hurriedly. At the same time, several rays of array light flashed in the room. Golden spells lit up around them. A high-level trapping array was formed instantly. Chef, quick, keep the dishes. Don't waste them. We can eat them later. Shunning hurriedly instructed. Yes, master. Chef waved his hand and kept all the dishes into his storage bag. Lone Moon, your first reaction is to keep the dishes? Be more serious, hey? At least pretend to be schemed against. In the next moment, the array light shone brightly. Thick array spirit chi shot up into the sky and directly lifted the entire roof. More than 10 soul formation cultivators and 3 traveling immortals were already standing in the sky. All of them held Dharma artifacts and looked down at Father Nyo with vigilance. Spirit locking array. Lone Moon recognized the array under his feet. It was quite a big deal. This was an array that could lock cultivators' spirit chi, but it consumed a lot of spirit stones. The more spirit stones there were, the stronger the array. Looking at the spirit chi in the array, it probably cost a lot. Lone Moon did not move. He looked up at the people in the sky and laughed softly. He recognized half of them as the cultivators who took Fatty back then. We meet again. How dare you, heretical cultivator? A traveling immortal in the sky shouted. How dare you kidnap our sect master time and time again? Hurry up and hand him over. Or don't even think about leaving this place today. Chapter 478. Hand him over to you? Lone Moon laughed coldly. And then let you blood sacrifice him again? Which one of your sect's cultivation level will be promoted this time? Everyone's expression changed instantly. A trace of panic flashed across their eyes simultaneously, and they immediately became even angrier. What nonsense are you talking about? They naturally could not admit to such things. The murderous aura on the traveling immortal intensified. You heretic cultivator, don't spread lies here. Whether I'm spreading lies or not, you know best in your hearts. Judging from their reactions just now, these people all knew about the blood sacrifice of the Fatty. Thinking of this, his expression became even colder. Using other people's flesh and blood to increase your cultivation. You actually dare to call yourselves a righteous sect? Ridiculous. Don't twist the truth here. Hurry up and hand over Huize. That person was so angry that his face turned red, and his gaze became even fiercer. What, you're not calling him sect master now? Lone Moon's eyes darkened. Who is twisting the truth? Why don't you go back and ask that cultivator, who just ascended to soul formation, but was punished by heaven? Everyone was stunned, as if they were poked at something, and their faces turned pale. They must be thinking about the appearance of the divine dragon, and the lightning punishment. Let me give you a piece of advice. If you do too many immoral things, one day you'll meet a cheat. Everyone's expression became more and more ugly. The traveling immortal's eyes wandered for a while, and then immediately said loudly, You don't have to be alarmist here. Your spirit chi has been sealed. No matter how powerful you are, don't even think about moving a step. Hurry up and hand him over. Is that so? Lone Moon smiled at that person, without a trace of panic on his face. No need to talk nonsense with them. The others finally seemed to be unable to wait any longer. Take them down first. Naturally we'll be able to ask where Huize is. With that said, they directly mobilized their spirit chi to attack, and for a moment, the sky was filled with the light of spells. Lone Moon looked directly at I Ching and said, There's enough trouble today. I don't want to fight anymore. I'll leave Chef to you. Chef nodded. and after some thought he added, compensation for food expenses? In your dreams, get lost. Oh, master, I've tried my best. Shunning, evil capitalists. In the next moment, a terrifying pressure that they had never seen before suddenly enveloped the entire immortal city. Before the soul formation and traveling immortals in the sky could react, they felt the spirit chi in their bodies stagnate. The spirit chi that was originally circulating freely dispersed, and they fell from the sky like dumplings. Thud, 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 thud. It smashed into the ground a few times, and was so deep that it was impossible to dig it out even if one wanted to. However, the pressure became even thicker, and the few of them spat out blood. Even the sky darkened in an instant. For a moment, the wind blew and the clouds surged. The entire sky was filled with thunderclouds, as if lightning would strike down at any moment. Well, what is this? Everyone was shocked. They had never felt such a terrifying pressure. It was not from a soul formation cultivator or a traveling deity. They even subconsciously thought that it was not the pressure of a deity. Lone Moon rolled his eyes at Chef. Damn it. The moment he heard that he wouldn't be compensated for his food expenses, this fellow didn't even put in his effort to fight. He actually released his divine might directly. This was practically slacking off. He glared at the master and disciple, then stood up. The spirit-locking array under his feet was still lit, but it did not affect him at all. He scanned the surroundings, and his eyes fixed on a figure hiding in the alley. A stream of spirit chi shot out, and directly pulled the person over. It was the golden core cultivator, who owed him spirit stones just now. Before that person could react, he was suppressed to the ground by the spirit-locking array under his feet. Instantly his face was full of fear. Say, Senior, spare me. Lone Moon walked a few steps closer, squatted down, and said in a low voice, let me ask you, the finished pills in the alchemy room, where did you buy them from? What? That person was stunned, and could not react for a moment. Answer me honestly, and I will let bygones be bygones. If you say anything false. He did not continue, but smiled even more amiably. I don't dare. He thought of the miserable state of those soul formation and traveling immortals just now, and his eyes became even more frightened. After thinking carefully about his question, he said, Pills. Oh, we're just a small pill shop under the Chi family. We don't have much profit, so we produce and sell everything ourselves. We make losses all year round. We buy the finished pills from alchemy masters from all over the world. The sources are all different, so we buy from whoever has it. Because they did not make money, they opened other shops. Then what about Chi nourishing pills? Chi nourishing pills? That person was stunned for a moment. Chi nourishing pills are low-level pills, but usually alchemy masters with a bit of fame do not want to specially refine them. So only low-level disciples of various big sects will use them to practice. We also directly enter from a sect, but we do not have a fixed sect. That was strange. Where did those soul-inducing pills come from? And that cultivator who quickly reincarnated? How did he confirm that this shop had such special chi-nourishing pills? Lone Moon frowned. He did not expect that they had made a wasted trip this time. It seemed like he had to slowly investigate this matter. He got up and glanced at the few soul formation and traveling immortal cultivators who were about to be pressed into the ground by the divine aura. He could not be bothered anymore. He turned back and shouted, let's go back. Oh! A certain piece of mud lying on the table slowly got up. The three of them were about to fly on their swords when Lone Moon seemed to suddenly think of something. He turned to look at that golden core cultivator. Oh yes, didn't you say you were going to collect spirit stones to pay off the debt? Have you collected them now? Quick, pay the money. Shening. I Ching. Cultivator. Are you a devil? After Lone Moon returned to the southern land, he continued to focus on training. Oh no, on educating Fatty. Compared to the supreme-grade trash in swordsmanship, Fatty's skills in alchemy, talismans, arrays, and weapons were extraordinary. No matter how complicated the array was, or how difficult the talismans were, Fatty could learn them in an extremely short time and master them. Moreover, Lone Moon only had to teach him once for him to master all kinds of mental cultivation techniques and Dharma spells on the same day. Others would need years, decades, or even centuries to familiarize themselves with spells, but he could immediately find the key to it and use it freely. Most cultivators had limited energy and would usually focus on one thing. Even if it was a mental cultivation technique, they would choose to focus on practicing it. But Fatty was different. He had learned everything about alchemy, talismans, arrays, and weapons. He had even practiced all kinds of mental cultivation techniques. Coupled with his 5-elemental spirit root, no mental cultivation technique would reject or be incompatible with him. Every aspect was top-notch in the lower realm. He had truly achieved moral, intellectual, physical beauty. Apui, alchemy, talismans, arrays, and weapons were all developed. There was no sign of him being biased. Apart from not being a fiendish cultivator, he was practically the next Boss Lands plug-in. Chapter 479. Rabbit, who had been accompanying a certain someone through bitter cultivation, felt a little puzzled. When they first entered the sword array, Fatty was still a weakling who couldn't even pass one level. He was often chased by the sword chi in the array until he cried out in pain, and his cries could be heard throughout the entire 10-level sword array. Just a few years ago, he still secretly sympathized with his brother Fatty, thinking about how under great immortal Lone Moon's forced training, his own cultivation was already improving rapidly, while Fatty was still at the same level. This was too pitiful. When Rabbit rose to the 9th level, Fatty was still in the low-level sword array. When it reached the 10th level, he was still in the low-level sword array. When it reached the 11th level, he was still in the low-level sword array. He originally thought that brother Fatty really didn't have any cultivation talent, and would probably struggle to survive in the sword array for the rest of his life. But he didn't expect that after leaving the sword array, things would suddenly take a sharp turn. When Fatty practiced the array cultivation mental cultivation technique, Rabbit was at the 11th level. When he practiced the talisman cultivation technique, Rabbit was still at the 11th level. When he practiced the pill and artifact cultivation technique, Rabbit was still at the 11th level. Even one day, when he woke up one night, he actually found that Fatty had inexplicably become a soul formation cultivator, the aura of his body faintly pressuring him to the point of suffocation. Rabbit was a little suspicious that he had been hit by some sorcery, and thus missed such a big event. Otherwise, why did brother Fatty advance a whole realm in one night? And not only did he not feel it, he didn't even hear the sound of the tribulation thunder. In just a few years, brother Fatty mastered the 4 skills of pill, talisman, array, and artifact, as well as the 5 mental cultivation techniques of metal, wood, water, fire, and earth. And no matter which one he took out, he was at the top level in the entire cultivation world. As a cultivator of the lower realm, apart from sword techniques, Fatty basically had nothing to learn. The only higher level was immortal arts. Rabbit expressed that he was shocked. Fortunately, no matter how powerful he was, he lived under the demonic claws of great immortal Lone Moon. When he thought of this, he suddenly felt that everything was balanced. 0. So when Fatty could finally graduate, Father Neo arranged for the first graduation exam, to refine 100 spirit swords, to pay off the debt. He had to make up for the flying swords he had wasted back then. Oh, that's right. When Fatty was learning about pills, talismans, arrays, and weapons, he had written an IOU. He still had to pay them back in the future. Take it as a tuition loan. It was in this kind of negative asset situation that Fatty had, in just a few years, finally cultivated from a Fatty of more than 200 caddies to a big Fatty of more than 300 caddies. Lone Moon. I Ching. Shening. That's right, he had gained weight again. Previously it was already a ball. Ever since it reached the soul formation stage, it directly evolved into a hot air balloon. Even Lone Moon could not understand it. He had been abstaining from eating for the past few years. At most, Rabbit had smuggled a few carrots to him in the early stages. Later on, he did not even drink much water. How on earth did he manage to grow without substance? With his current physique, he didn't even need to use sword kinesis flight when he went out. All he had to do was pat the ground, and he would be able to bounce forward. Perhaps it was because Lone Moon had given him too much homework, but even Fatty's speed of weapon refinement had improved by leaps and bounds. In addition, flying swords were not like Dharma artifacts. No matter how high the grade was, it was still relatively easy to refine. Hence, his progress was very fast. Unfortunately, before Fatty had finished handing in his homework, someone came to the door first. Suddenly, a loud sound came from the originally peaceful southern land. Following that, a large number of spells lit up from the direction of the Spirit River. Accompanied by a series of roars, there were also a few faint familiar auras. Fatty, who was working hard on weapon refinement, shook his hand. His expression darkened. He turned to look outside the house. The flying sword in his hand, that was just about to take shape, broke with a crack. It was rare that it had become a useless sword. "Master, just now that was... Lone Moon frowned and looked down at the broken sword on the ground. He silently picked up a pen and added another line in his little notebook. "The material for this sword is 10 spirit stones. This also counts. Great Immortal! Great Immortal!" Rabbit ran over hurriedly and said anxiously, "Not good. There are suddenly many high-level cultivators at the entrance of the southern land. They have already surrounded the outside. They are destroying the Spirit River." Lone Moon nodded. "It's about time." When Shen Ying and I Ching sneaked out to Immortal Bian City to buy food, they had already been discovered by the Divine Imperial Sect. It was only a matter of time before they found the southern land. The reason why there had been no movement in the past few years was probably because they had been thinking of a way to enter the southern land. "Master." Fatty turned to look at Lone Moon with a solemn expression, with a somewhat pleading tone. "Go. Settle it yourself." Lone Moon did not stop him. Fatty, this little cheat, had long reached the late stage of soul formation these years, but there were still no signs of him ascending. Those experiences in the past still became a knot in his heart. Now it was time to untie it. Fatty's eyes brightened, and his expression became more determined. He let go of the broken sword in his hand and took a step back. Then, he cupped his fists and bowed respectfully to Lone Moon. He said very seriously, "Thank you, Master." He solemnly kowtowed 3 times. His aura instantly changed. It was as if all the softness and honesty of the past had been put away in an instant. Like a treasured sword that had been unsheathed, it instantly revealed its sharpness. This was the true appearance of a soul formation supremacy. Brother Fatty, are you going to deal with those people alone?" Rabbit, who did not understand the truth, said with some worry. "There are too many cultivators. The little demons have reported that there are dozens of soul formation cultivators alone." "Just Fatty alone. Great Immortal and the others. Aren't they going to help?" "Brother Rabbit, thank you for taking care of me these days." Fatty smiled at it. Without further explanation, he turned and walked out the door. Rabbit looked at his receding figure, then looked at Lone Moon. His eyes turned in a daze. After a while, he gritted his teeth and pulled Fatty back, saying loudly, "Wait. Brother Fatty, I'll go with you." Fatty was stunned. "Brother Rabbit, this matter has nothing to do with you. You don't have to. We're all beaten together. Brothers who eat carrots together. How can I watch you take risks alone?" Rabbit patted his chest and said righteously, "Besides, those human cultivators dared to invade my southern land. Do they think that I, a 12th level demon king, am a pushover? All these years apart from cultivating, it was not that he did nothing else. At least he unified the entire southern land and became a true myriad demon king. Of course, it was with his mouth. Brother Rabbit." Fatty looked touched. After hesitating for a while, he finally nodded and said, "All right, us brothers will go together. I'll summon the demon army right now." Only then did the two of them walk out together with a resolute and aggressive look. They had a sense of heroism. Just then, Lone Moon suddenly opened his mouth to add a sentence. "After fighting, you still have to come back to hand in your homework. Same goes for Rabbit." Clang! The man and the rabbit stumbled and almost fell flat on the ground. In the next moment, they immediately stood up straight and sped up their footsteps to run away, pretending not to hear. Bromance. Chapter 480. At the entrance of the southern land, a huge array formation that looked like a golden ribbon was floating above the Spirit River. Countless talismans lit up from it, and the golden light was very bright. Every time the light grew brighter, the white mist above the Spirit River became thinner, and every 2 meters near the Spirit River, there was a cultivator setting up the array. At first, there seemed to be more than 20 of them. Each of their cultivation was not low. The lowest was at the early stage of soul formation. They were working together to destroy the Spirit River in front of them. Behind these foreign cultivators stood countless cultivators. At a rough glance, there were several thousand of them, and they occupied the vast wasteland in front of the river. Some of them even stopped in the air on their swords. They were divided into several camps. There were hundreds of people standing together, and dozens of people at the least. Looking at their clothes, they all belonged to different sections. It seemed that all the high-level cultivators in the entire sacred arrival realm had come out in full force. The largest group was the Divine Imperial Sect cultivators who occupied the front. They had the most high-level cultivators. There were more than 10 soul formation cultivators, not to mention 5 traveling immortals. All of them frowned as they looked at the Spirit River in front of them. The cultivators spent more than an hour before they worked together to stir up the entire Spirit River. The white fog in front of them became thinner and thinner. The scenery of the southern land became clearer. When the white fog completely dissipated, everyone was ready to rush in. Roar, 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 roar. Suddenly, dozens of beast roars sounded at the same time. Like thousands of thunder, the array formation shook. A gust of wind mixed with a violent aura swept towards the cultivators. The high-level cultivators of each sect hurriedly set up a protective array formation to protect their disciples. Only then did everyone see clearly that there was a large group of demon beasts standing on the other side of the river. And all of them were above level 8, and there were even level 10. Some were as strong as mountains, and some were in human form. At first glance, there were hundreds of them. Their eyes were filled with anger as they looked at the cultivators on the other side. They seemed to have been waiting for a long time. Perhaps it was the first time they saw so many high-level demon beasts at the same time. The cultivators' hearts sank. These demon beasts were obviously here to stop them. The leader of the Divine Imperial Sect, traveling immortal Sun Yu, frowned even more. A hint of annoyance flashed across his eyes, but it wasn't because he was worried that they couldn't subdue hundreds of high-level demon beasts, but because if they were to fight, it would definitely take up too much time, and it would be detrimental to their search. Just as he was thinking, the herd of demonic beasts suddenly roared in unison and parted to the sides, opening a path. 2 men, one gray and one white, walked out. The man in white had a monstrous aura around him, and even the expressions of the soul formation cultivators present changed. This was a 12th-ranked demon king. As for the person beside him, it was a ball. No, it was a man as fat as a ball, and his facial features looked a little familiar. The eyes of everyone from Divine Imperial Sect lit up as they stared at the person on the right. Huize, Sun Yu shouted subconsciously. You bunch of human cultivators. How dare you barge into my southern land and destroy my Spirit River? Are you tired of living? Do you want me to send you to hell? Rabbit snorted coldly. The demonic aura around him intensified, and he pounced towards the crowd. Sun Yu's eyes darkened, and he glanced at Fatty, who was standing beside the Demon King, before stepping forward and saying, Demon King, we originally had no intention to provoke a battle between the Demon and Beast clans, but you colluded with heretical cultivators, kidnapped our sect master, and hid here for several years. As a disciple of Divine Imperial Sect, how can we not care about what you do? With that said, he looked at Fatty again, and a hint of greed flashed across his eyes. Today, all the cultivators are gathered here. Hurry up and release our sect master. Otherwise, don't blame us for flattening the southern land. I'm not your sect master. Fatty's face darkened, and he felt that the word sect master was extremely disgusting. He said directly, Brother Rabbit didn't kidnap me at all, and neither did Master and the others. All these years, because of my special physique, you guys used me as a blood sacrifice time and time again, and used my flesh and blood to raise your cultivation. If not for Master, and the others arriving in time last time, I would have died in the blood array long ago. Once these words came out, everyone was shocked, and they all looked towards the people of Divine Imperial Sect in the middle, using the blood and flesh of living people to raise cultivation. Such a shocking thing was completely unheard of. As the leader of the immortal sects, would Divine Imperial Sect really do such a thing? Sect Master, you are still inexperienced. Don't be fooled by those heretical cultivators. Sun Yu, however, didn't panic at all, and there was not even a hint of guilt on his face. Instead, he looked pained and worried. That heretical cultivator kidnapped you with impure intentions in the first place. That's why he would use these words to deceive you. Our sect is indebted to your ancestors. How can we do such a thing that is worse than beasts? Moreover, using blood and flesh as a sacrifice to raise cultivation is really absurd. How can there be such a strange thing in this world? Indeed, no matter how powerful the cultivators in this world were, they were only flesh and blood. Everyone was the same. If flesh and blood could really raise cultivation, not to mention ordinary cultivators, even those fiendish cultivators who often came into contact with corpses, and Yin Chi would all have extremely high cultivation. Everyone nodded. They were sure that this fatty was deceived by others to believe such absurd words. Moreover, Sect Master, your body has been weak since you were young. We were eager to save you, so we had to use some special methods. There would be some pain during the treatment. Sun Yu continued to explain, his expression even more worried. But this is all for the good of Sect Master. Treatment of pain. Fatty laughed out loud. What kind of serious illness do I have that I need to cut off my arms, cut open my abdomen, cut my flesh and let out my blood once every 7 days? He suddenly felt that it was meaningless. Clearly when Master saved him that day, he should have seen clearly what kind of demons they were. Why was it that until now, he still hoped that perhaps they would have that little bit of guilt in their hearts? Master was right. Some people did so many bad things that they wouldn't think it was a bad thing anymore. The principle of the world was never as hard as the fist. Forget it. The reason is no longer important. Fatty sighed. His whole body felt relaxed for no reason, as if something that had been pressing on his shoulders for many years was suddenly removed. Today, I only fight for my own justice. His eyes darkened. The aura of the soul formation stage was instantly released from his whole body, faintly overshadowing the aura of all the cultivators present. You have cultivation, that restriction. Sun Yu's eyes widened abruptly. He exclaimed out loud. Halfway through his words, he stopped hurriedly, his face full of disbelief. He didn't realize that the demonic aura was too strong just now. He didn't expect that he had actually become a soul formation cultivator. How long had he been in the southern land? No matter how talented a cultivator was, it was impossible to reach the soul formation stage so quickly, unless he had some kind of miraculous encounter. The restriction that you guys set in my consciousness is not unbreakable. Fatty directly spoke for him. With a turn of his hand, he summoned a spirit sword. Sun Yu's expression darkened. He still maintained that look of moral superiority just now. He pretended to have a pained expression. Now that Sect Master has been deceived by scoundrels, looks like you won't listen to our advice. Never mind. We can only save you out of the southern land first, then find a chance to slowly tell you in detail. Chapter 481. Sun Yu let out a long sigh, and turned to look at the cultivators of the various sections. Fellow Taoists, the demons of the southern land have been causing trouble for a long time, and now they are colluding with heretical cultivators. This is really unforgivable. Please follow my divine imperial sect to exterminate the demons and defend the Tao. The leading cultivators of the various sects exchanged glances. Although the southern land was closed all year round, the various sects still had some understanding of it. It was said that there were 7 demon kings in the southern land, and they fought among themselves and were not united. Now there was only one. Although there were many high-level demon beasts with him, as long as the various sects joined forces, they could still fight against him. So they didn't think much, and were about to respond. Suddenly, A series of loud roars came from the depths of the southern land. Dust filled the sky behind the demons, and with a series of rumbling sounds, a large amount of thick demon aura was approaching here. Even the ground was shaking, as if thousands of troops and horses were galloping over. In a short while everyone saw clearly what it was. Demon beasts. It was countless demon beasts rushing over in a frenzy, densely packed together. Even the originally dense forest was pressed down. The demons and beasts were so densely packed that they couldn't see the end. Such a large beast tide. Not to mention them. Even if all the cultivators of the entire sacred arrival world came, they might not be able to stop it. And at a glance, each demon beast's cultivation was not low. When they got closer, they even found that there were 6 shocking demon auras in front of the herd. They were obviously 12th level demon kings. The 7 demon kings of the southern land were actually all here. If they joined forces, the various sex cultivators felt a chill in their hearts, and their faces turned pale. Fortunately, the demon beasts of the southern land had always been their own witnesses. It shouldn't be so easy for them to join forces. The sky full of demon beasts rushed all the way, and only stopped in front of the spirit river. The 6 leading demon kings walked up directly, and then turned and knelt down in the direction of Rabbit without hesitation, and spoke in unison. Reporting to my king, I have already gathered the demon army, and came under orders. Rabbit nodded, and gestured for them to get up. Thank you for your hard work, demon kings. This is our duty. I dare not say it was hard work. Leopard King, who had finally grown new claws, hurriedly replied. Lion King also said, guarding the southern land, demons have rules. That's right. The other demon kings also nodded. These human cultivators actually dared to invade our southern land, destroyed our spirit river, and even dared to boast shamelessly in front of us, the myriad demon king. Do they really think our southern land is a pushover? As they spoke, they glared angrily at the cultivators on the other side of the river, as if they would have bitten them to death if their king had not given the order. Everyone. Didn't they say that they didn't have a good relationship with the southern demon monarch? Also, when did they have 1,000 goblin king? The cultivators couldn't help but look at the rabbit at the front. They were clearly all at the 12th level. So why were the demon kings willing to serve that rabbit demon as their king? The cultivators' hearts sank. Suddenly, they didn't dare to act rashly. They couldn't help but feel lucky that they didn't have time to respond to Divine Imperial Sect's invitation to battle just now. It should be known that the cultivation of a 12th level demon king and a traveling immortal was not much different. Moreover, the demon race was naturally strong. They might not be able to gain the upper hand. Not to mention there were 7 of them. Not to mention those 10th and 11th ranked beasts. They did not even dare to look at the numbers. Everyone from Divine Imperial Sect paled, not knowing what to do. Brother Rabbit, Fatty said directly, today's matter is only between me and Divine Imperial Sect. It has nothing to do with others. There's no need to cause a conflict between the 2 races. Let us settle it ourselves. Brother Fatty. The rabbit panicked and wanted to say something, but looking at Fatty's determined eyes, it swallowed the words that were at the tip of its tongue. On the way here, Fatty had already explained his matter clearly to it. Naturally, it understood his thoughts, so it took a step back and turned to look at the cultivators of the various sections. Listen, I cannot pursue the matter of you trespassing into my southern land today, but my brother has to settle the score with Divine Imperial Sect. This has nothing to do with others. If others dare to interfere, then my demon race doesn't mind interfering as well. Its meaning was clear. It was Fatty's business to settle the score with Divine Imperial Sect. If others were to help Divine Imperial Sect, then they would fight. The cultivators of the various sects looked at each other for a while. No one dared to stand out easily. After all, between a personal grudge and a war between the 2 races, no one would choose the latter. In addition, Fatty was only one person, while Divine Imperial Sect had more than 10 soul formation cultivators and 3 traveling immortals. It was obvious who would win. Fatty took a few steps forward and pointed the sword in his hand at Sun Yu. Attack! Which one of you will come first or together? Sun Yu sighed, looking like he had no choice. Since sect master insists, then don't blame me for offending you. He summoned his Dharma artifact. The two figures flashed and instantly fought together. Sun Yu activated the Dharma artifact in his hand. In an instant, a net made of spirit chi fell towards Fatty. That net was so big that it seemed to be able to cover the entire sky. There was also a strong coercion on it. Wherever it passed, all the spells that Fatty summoned were all absorbed into it. It looked like the whole person was about to be caught in the net too. It was over. Sun Yu sighed. He didn't take Fatty seriously at all. After all, no matter how powerful he was only a soul formation cultivator, while he was a traveling immortal. Just as he was about to keep his Dharma artifact, a figure flashed in the net and suddenly disappeared inside. Huh? Sun Yu was shocked. Before he could react, he felt a huge pain in his waist. Fatty, who was originally still in the net, suddenly appeared behind him and kicked towards him. He didn't notice it for a moment, and directly fell from the sky with a thud. He ate a mouthful of mud. Sun Yu crawled up in disbelief. How was this possible? He had clearly used his Dharma artifact to suppress him. How could he still escape? Before he could be shocked, Fatty's next wave of attack had already arrived. He saw several fire dragons descend from the sky and directly fall towards his direction. His heart sank. He didn't dare to underestimate the other party anymore. He hurriedly summoned a large amount of water vapor and condensed it into a stream of water to counterattack. That stream of water was like a chain and wrapped around the fire dragon, wanting to completely extinguish the water dragon. But just as it wrapped around the dragon, several lightning bolts suddenly appeared on the dragon's body. Not only did his stream of water not extinguish it, it instead caused the lightning bolts to flourish. The entire fire dragon instantly became several times thicker, bringing with it crackling lightning. With a rumbling sound, the fire dragon charged down. It was already too late for Sun Yu to dodge. He could only hurriedly lay down a defensive barrier, but it was completely useless. Those lightning bolts instantly broke through his defense and swallowed him whole. Ah! Sun Yu instantly let out a tragic cry. If not for the Dharma robe on his body, his entire body would probably have been completely burned. However, his exposed skin was still burned. The intense pain caused him to directly roll on the ground. But the fire dragons in the sky were not done yet. Immediately after, several fire dragons once again descended. Chapter 482. Seeing that Sun Yu had nowhere to hide, and was about to disappear completely in the lightning and fire dragons, the people of Divine Imperial Sect finally reacted. 2 traveling immortals and a few soul formation cultivators rushed out and blocked the remaining fire dragons, saving Sun Yu. Everyone was shocked. Everyone could see that Fatty was only at the late stage of soul formation, but in less than a quarter of an hour, he had defeated a traveling immortal. His strength was undeniably shocking. Whether it was the heretic cultivator, who had yet to show himself, or the myriad demon king in front of them, it was obvious that it would not be so easy to take Huizhe away today. The cultivators of Divine Imperial Sect all darkened their faces and exchanged a look. The remaining 2 traveling immortals and 2 soul formation cultivators. The 4 of them turned and attacked Fatty at the same time, fighting again. Not far away in the hidden array, a certain crowd of 3 was drinking tea and eating melon seeds, watching the battle calmly. 1 against 4? Shenning tilted her head. 1 against 4 is nothing. Fatty is an all-rounder cultivator after all. Lone Moon said indifferently. Oh, then how many can he fight at most? I bet 3 months of food expenses at least 7. Lone Moon said confidently. Shen Ying's eyes darted around and brightened. Then I'll bet 3 fruits 8. I Ching looked back and forth between the 2. In order to appear more sociable, he cooperated and added, I bet 3 meals 10. Lone Moon. Shening. Was there a difference whether you bet or not? Which meal wasn't cooked by you? As the few of them spoke, the few people fighting over there were slowly coming to an end. Lone Moon's guess was right. Even if the 4 of them attacked together, they did not gain the upper hand in Fatty's hands. Instead, they were faintly being suppressed by Fatty's endless and completely different sorcery. The cultivators of Divine Imperial Sect who were watching the battle below couldn't help it anymore. So more and more people joined the battle. In the end, there were already more than 10 soul formation cultivators and traveling immortals attacking Fatty together. But Fatty's sorcery was really too smooth. All kinds of sorcery stacked together. It looked like fire element, but there was also thunder element mixed in. In the end, it was ice element and wind element. Until the last moment, no one could think of a complete way to deal with it. And he also set up a few array formations from time to time. Often as they fought, before they could even react, they would already be trapped in his array. It wasn't just the people fighting. Even the other sects couldn't believe their eyes. They didn't expect him to be able to fight against so many cultivators of the same level, and even higher level by himself. More than 10 years ago, he was still a mere mortal. In less than an hour, many soul formation cultivators were hit, falling from the sky one after another, looking even worse than Sun Yu. The more they watched, the more shocked they were. Finally, all the soul formation cultivators and traveling immortals of Divine Imperial Sect attacked together. For a moment, the sky was filled with the light of sorcery. The battle went on for several hours. There were only a few dozen soul formation cultivators and one traveling immortal left in the sky. Of course, there was also Fatty. His body was covered in wounds, and his robe was stained with blood. The long battle had consumed a lot of energy. His face was already showing signs of fatigue, but he still looked at the people in front of him with a resolute gaze. He could not lose this battle, and the people of Divine Imperial Sect also obviously fought with all their strength, seeming to see that he was already at the end of his rope, and attacked even more intensively. Dozens of sorcery flew towards Fatty, and someone even set up a trapping array. A golden array formation instantly formed above his head. And this time, he had nowhere to retreat. Fatty only felt his chi and blood surging, and he knelt down on one knee, and the sorcery that was still attacking the people just now also started to become unstable. After all, under the siege of more than 10 soul formation cultivators, no matter how good Fatty's 5-element sorcery was, this was already the limit. The wounds on his body increased, and his movements became slower and slower. And the people of Divine Imperial Sect didn't have it easy either. This trapping array had already exhausted the last spirit chi of the person who set it up. When the others saw that Fatty was trapped inside, they immediately created a sky full of icicles, lightning, spirit swords, and used the last bit of strength to attack. Success or failure depended on this one move. Seeing that the trapping array was getting brighter and brighter, and that the sky full of sorcery was about to blast Fatty into pieces, Fatty gritted his teeth, and suddenly, in an instant, an unprecedented huge burst of spirit chi exploded, and his originally round body suddenly began to expand crazily, like a rapidly expanding rubber ball. His figure suddenly became hundreds of times bigger, directly breaking the trapping array, and withstanding everyone's sorcery. The sky full of sorcery hit his huge ball-shaped body, but actually had no effect at all. There's still this move. The master and disciple group of onlookers all turned to look at a certain dean. What are you looking at? Lone Moon directly glared back. What the hell is this misleading look of yours? I'm making use of his strengths. Do you understand? The two of them. Society. On the other side, Fatty, who had already turned into a huge rubber ball, had already begun to spin. For a moment, the wind and clouds surged, before the surrounding soul formation cultivators could react. They were instantly thrown out by the surrounding astral winds, together with their own sorcery attacks. Instantly, everyone was like dumplings, falling from the sky with a thud, and Fatty directly rose into the air, flew into the sky, and smashed down. The speed was shocking, and the people who had exhausted their spirit chi had no way to dodge at all, could only watch as a huge earth-shattering meatball fell from the sky, directly smashing towards them. Then there was a loud boom. Instantly, a huge pit more than 10 meters long appeared on the ground, and the surrounding was even more cracked inch by inch. For a moment, the earth shook and the mountains swayed. Even the surrounding sects had to set up arrays and fly on their swords to avoid being affected. and the people of Divine Imperial Sect had long been crushed into meat patties. Only a dozen or so weak auras remained, proving that they were still alive. But it was not known if they could survive, let alone if their cultivation could be preserved. Father Neo, this isn't a move of a body cultivator, is it? I Ching said subconsciously, not to mention the sudden transformation. Such a strong body to be able to crush a soul formation cultivator like this. It could only be a body cultivator. Shut up. Who said he was a body cultivator? Fatty definitely couldn't be a body cultivator. Definitely not. Only then did Fatty return to his original appearance. His situation was not good. This move had already used up all his spirit chi. His whole body was almost turning into a blood ball. His body stumbled a few times, but he struggled to not fall. Sweeping a glance at the Divine Imperial Sect cultivators all over the ground, he won. He really won. His tense nerves finally relaxed. The corner of his mouth involuntarily lifted into a smile. He subconsciously turned back, looking in the direction of Rabbit. He wanted to immediately go back and tell Master that he did it, but just happened to see Rabbit's shocked expression. "Watch out!" Rabbit shouted. Chapter 483. The fatty was taken aback. He felt a huge pressure suddenly attacking him, bringing with it an aura that made it impossible for him to resist. The heavily injured Sun Yu suddenly threw something out. The sanctimonious look in his eyes was long gone, and he looked like he wanted to skin Fatty alive. A huge green umbrella suddenly appeared in the sky, surrounded by white light, and a strong pressure swept across a radius of several miles. Be it the cultivators of the various sects or the demons, they all looked horrified. This umbrella was obviously not an item of the mortal world. Soul-absorbing umbrella? Fatty faltered, but it was already too late to dodge. Holy shit. Lone Moon cursed. He couldn't win, and actually used an immortal artifact to cheat. Did he think he was dead? He stood up directly, and was about to attack, but was pulled back by Shining beside him. Father Neo. Just as the immortal chi on the umbrella was about to hit Fatty, a Buddhist name suddenly came from the sky, and instantly dispelled the attack on the umbrella. Amitba. Everyone heard a series of bells ringing, and they saw a bald man in a kasaya flying over on a lotus platform. His entire body was emitting a faint golden Buddhist light. Compared to the other handsome cultivators, his appearance was very ordinary, but there was a cinnabar dot between his eyebrows that was particularly eye-catching. His entire person gave off an aura of compassion. It's a Buddhist cultivator from Haoran Court. Someone recognized the identity of the person, and directly exclaimed. The person waved his hand, and instantly forcibly kept the green umbrella immortal artifact, and bowed to everyone. This poor monk Chanji greets all benefactors. Everyone was shocked, some even widened their eyes, their faces full of disbelief. Chanji? Isn't that the Haoran Court Lord? I didn't expect him to actually come personally. Haoran Court does not participate in worldly disputes. They only judge the justice of the world. Coming at this time, could it be that someone is doing evil? It seems that there must be something hidden between the people of Divine Imperial Sect and this sect master that caused Haoran Court to act. Everyone began to speculate softly, but without exception, they all had some respectful expressions towards the person who came. Even Fatty's expression softened. Huh. Shening tilted her head, glanced at the monk who suddenly appeared, and then turned to look at Lone Moon. Why are you looking at me? Lone Moon rolled his eyes. I don't know who this is. What Haoran Court? He had never heard of it. Chef, on the other hand, frowned and asked subconsciously, Master, the Buddha light on this person. Shining nodded. What Buddha light? This is the golden light of merit, right? Lone Moon also saw it and subconsciously replied. I Ching opened his mouth as if he wanted to say something, but in the end he didn't. He turned his head and continued to look at the center. The monk called Chanji had already taken the green umbrella and walked towards Sun Yu, who was on the ground. Taoist son, since you have already lost to this Taoist Hui, why must you stab him in the back, take out your immortal weapon and add to the sins of killing? Sun Yu's face paled, and his expression changed a few times. After a while, he hit it again and took out an elixir to eat. Then he replied, I was wrong. Huize was originally our sect master, and we served him with all our might. For more than 20 years, we never thought that he would not be grateful. He was even deceived by a heretical cultivator and held a grudge against us. I was so angry that I took out my immortal weapon. Shut up, don't slander my master, Fatty retorted directly. Master removed the seal on my spirit root and taught me sorcery. He's not a heretical cultivator. He's the best master in the world. You know very well who is deceiving me. Rabbit also hurriedly flew over and supported Fatty, who was on the verge of collapsing. That's right. How dare you slander great immortal? Do you want to die? Ba. Chanji sighed and said, the feud between the two of you has already involved both the human and demon realms. In order to prevent people from dying, my Hao Ran court naturally cannot sit back and do nothing. If the two of you believe me, why don't I judge for the two of you? A hint of hesitation flashed across Fatty's eyes. After a while he still nodded. After all, Hao Ran court was different from Divine Imperial sect. They did not belong to any sect. It was a place completely independent from the immortal sections. Everyone in the sect hated evil and had enough power. They were an existence that the entire sacred arrival realm looked up to. If a cultivator had any grievances, as long as they could cross the uncrouped sea and find Hao Ran court, they would definitely come forward to uphold justice. My body constitution is special. I've been imprisoned in Divine Imperial sect since I was young. After I grew up, every 7 days, they would come and take away my flesh and blood. They sacrificed me to raise their cultivation. Fatty recounted his situation from beginning to end, including how the other party had set up restrictions in his sea of consciousness to prevent him from cultivating, so that they could better control him. And Sun Yu was the same as before, refusing to admit it. Sect leader, I know that you have a lot of misunderstandings towards us. That's why you believe in nonsense like the flesh sacrifice array. You couldn't cultivate in the past. I can understand your resentment towards my sect. Now that your cultivation has suddenly increased, I don't know what method the heretic cultivator used on you. You have to be on guard. My master is not a heretic cultivator. Fatty was obviously no match for the old fox Sun Yu. Sect master, the 23 soul formation elders of our sect, and the traveling immortal elders all treat you sincerely. How can you use sacrificing flesh and blood to slander them without any evidence? You, who said we don't have evidence? Lone Moon could not sit still anymore. He directly appeared beside Fatty. Master, you. Fatty was delighted. He was about to step forward when Lone Moon stuffed a handful of pills into his mouth. He swallowed it and coughed. Meditate and regulate your breath. Lone Moon glared at him. If you don't know how to speak, then shut up. Fatty's aura visibly weakened. He took a few steps back and obediently sat down to regulate his breath. It's you. Sun Yu recognized at one glance that this was the person who took Huize away. It's you, this heretic cultivator, who bewitched the sect master. Heretic cultivator? Lone Moon laughed coldly. In this world, there are people who call me supremacy. Some call me young emperor, and some call me daddy. But this is the first time someone called me a heretic cultivator. Let me ask you, which eye of yours saw that I am a heretic cultivator? Humph. Sun Yu snorted. Your cultivation level is strange. You even let Huize ascend to the soul formation stage in a short span of more than 10 years. This cultivation level is obviously abnormal. Perhaps it's not stable at all. Who knows if there will be problems in the future? To be able to do this, if you're not a heretic cultivator, then what are you? Fatty's cultivation level is unstable. Lone Moon laughed coldly. So you were beaten down by an unstable soul formation cultivator just now? Sun Yu was stumped, unable to say anything from his retort. You're the one who's ignorant, and you blame others for being too outstanding. Let's not talk about whether I'm a heretic cultivator or not. But you must be a stupid cultivator. Stupid as stupid as stupid. You want to argue with me? Rabbit was taught by me. Other than the foodie Ing, he has never lost before. You. Sun Yu was so angry that his face turned red. His chi and blood surged. He almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Chapter 484. Amitabha. Chanji stepped forward at the right time and interrupted the two of them. Fellow Taoist, I wonder what exactly do you mean by the evidence you mentioned just now? Is there any truth to it? Lone Moon laughed coldly. Of course. As he spoke, he took out a white stone. This is an image recording stone. Chanji was stunned for a moment and instantly understood what he meant. Could it be that this stone records the truth? Lone Moon did not answer and directly transmitted a bit of spirit chi to activate the image recording stone in his hand. Immediately, spirit chi gathered above the stone and images appeared. It was the scene of the Divine Imperial Sect's promotion ceremony for that Yusu. He sat in a huge array, facing the heavenly lightning. In the next moment, the image flashed, and they arrived in a secret room. Fatty lay in the blood sacrifice array, his body full of wounds. Blood flowed into the array, and into the defensive array of the person going through the tribulation. All the sect's expressions changed, and some even turned to look at Sun Yu in disbelief. This did not seem like what he said, the scene of Hui Zai's weak body being treated. Ridiculous. A trace of panic flashed across Sun Yu's face, but he still defended himself loudly. How can such a brainless scene prove that we did it? Though Hui Zai is in the blood array, there is no one else beside him. Who knows if you deliberately framed him? You don't want to admit it? Never mind, there's more. Lone Moon laughed mockingly. Indeed, in the next moment, the image changed and several figures appeared. It was the scene of 3 traveling immortals from Divine Imperial Sect pressing Fatty into the blood array. This time, it was not just an image but also a voice. The 3 people inside could be heard saying, Hui Zai, you know that Yusu has been at the peak of nascent soul for many years, and his cultivation level has stabilized. It's time for him to advance, yet you sneaked out. The date of the promotion ceremony has been notified to all sects. It cannot be changed anymore. Now you can only enter the array. Zai, we have no choice. Who asked you to be disobedient first? We didn't want to be so cruel. Yes, take this as a lesson for you. Next time, don't sneak out of the sect. As they spoke, they directly pushed the numb Fatty into the blood array. Then, they activated the wind blades, leaving deep wounds on his body that revealed his bones. For a moment, there was dead silence. Do you need more evidence? Lone Moon asked in return. These images were recorded after he saved Fatty, using the Divine Race's backtracking technique. For this, he specially went back to Divine Imperial Sect secretly. He expected that they would definitely be useful in the future. There had to be surveillance footage or something. It was just that this spell had a time limit, so he could only see a little, but it was enough. Sun Yu and the others didn't dare to say another word to defend themselves. Their faces were even paler, as if they had already foreseen how Divine Imperial Sect would be condemned after this incident. Amitabha. Chanji also sighed. His gaze towards Sun Yu was full of disapproval. His voice also deepened. Fellow Taoist son, Divine Imperial Sect uses human flesh and blood to sacrifice to the array to raise their cultivation. Such a vicious act is no different from that of an evil demon. You people are not worthy of being called immortal cultivators. Benefactor Hui Zai heavily injured all of you today. It can be said that it is fate. It is all because of the bad karma that you have created. Sun Yu was even more afraid to make a sound. Chanji also continued. As the Lord of Haoran Court, I will definitely not condone your evil acts. From today onwards, within 3 months, Benefactor Sun, please go back and order the entire sect to abolish the cultivation that was raised through human flesh and blood, no matter if it is soul formation or traveling immortal cultivators. And within 300 years, the disciples of the sect are not allowed to leave the sect. This is to return justice to fellow Taoist Hui Zai. Court Lord. Sun Yu was shocked, as if he wanted to refute. But if anyone has the slightest hesitation, Chanji did not wait for him to finish and continued. My Haoran Court will go to Divine Imperial Sect and personally execute it on your behalf. Sun Yu lowered his head, but didn't dare to argue anymore. Even the other people of Divine Imperial Sect all lowered their heads. But when the other sects heard this, a hint of joy flashed across their eyes. Divine Imperial Sect was known as the #1 immortal sect of the Sacred Arrival Realm. Naturally, it had the most disciples. Not allowing disciples to leave for 300 years. That meant that the other sects had 300 more years to develop. Who knows who would be number one by then? Everyone, please sincerely repent and reflect on your mistakes. Chanji put his palms together and called out the name of Buddha again. Lone Moon looked at this monk in confusion. He really didn't think that this monk who rushed out to say that he wanted to uphold justice really had some tricks up his sleeve. These cultivators actually really listened to him. They didn't even have the intention to fight back. Could it be that this so-called Haoran court was really so prestigious? It was practically like the law enforcement agency of the immortal cultivation world. The relevant departments? Fellow Taoist Huizhe. Chanji turned to look at Fatty behind him, revealing a kind smile. Fellow Taoist's body is special. I have cultivated for many years and traveled the world. But I have never seen such a special case. But I think this is not a good thing. Although fellow Taoist has already found justice, your days in the future will not be too peaceful. His meaning was very clear. As long as Fatty's body was not resolved, there would be people who coveted his flesh and blood. After all, flesh and blood that could directly raise one's cultivation. It was hard not to covet it. Fatty naturally knew this as well. His expression darkened. Fellow Taoist, if you don't mind, Chanji continued to suggest, you can follow me back to Haoran Court to stay temporarily. My sect is full of Buddhist cultivators. The last thing we can't stand is the smell of blood. To fellow Taoist, this must be the most suitable place? Once the storm has passed, you can come and go on your own. What do you think, fellow Taoist? Haoran Court? Lone Moon frowned. He subconsciously opened his mouth and said, where will Fatty go with you? All right. Before he could finish, Shening suddenly appeared out of nowhere, directly agreeing to the monk's request. Chanji was stunned. He looked at Shening, who suddenly appeared, subconsciously looked around. Where did this girl come from? He actually did not notice. Shening, what are you doing? Lone Moon glared at her disapprovingly. Aya, Father Nyo, eating small animals all day will get boring. It's time for a change. Get lost. When have you ever been so diligent? Shening had already turned to look at the monk. I say, Master Deng, can I bring family and burdens to your house? She pointed at Father Nyo, then at herself and Chef. His surname wasn't Deng? Chanji was stunned, then regained his senses. He put his palms together and said, since they are friends of fellow Taoist Huizhe, of course they can. Oh, then let's go. Shening waved at Chef. Chef, quickly pack your things and let's go. Yes, Master, no problem, Master. I Ching looked around, remembering that he did not seem to have much to pack. So he casually picked up Fatty, who was meditating. Fatty. Rabbit. Chapter 485. The war between the two realms ended just like that, with Fatty taking on a whole bunch of enemies. Shening, Fatty, and the rest stayed in the southern land for 2 days, before they officially decided to leave for Haoran Court. Rabbit was crying his eyes out. He held onto Fatty's hand reluctantly. Brother Fatty, you have to come back and see me. He even stuffed a few bags of carrots into Lone Moon's hands. Eat when you're hungry. Remember to come back and look for me when you're done. Oh yes, don't let great immortals see you. Don't worry, Brother Rabbit. You're my best friend. I'll come back to see you when I'm free. Fatty looked reluctant as well. He quickly kept the carrots and patted his chest. No problem. Lone Moon, who had seen the whole thing. Why don't the two of you just get together? It's getting late. Fellow Taoists, let's go. Chanji looked at the sky and reminded them. Lone Moon nodded. Thinking of Fatty's weight, he did not choose to fly on his sword. Instead, he took out something and threw it out. Instantly, it turned into a huge spirit boat. It was snow white and emanated spirit chi. Under the sunlight, it shone with a colorful light. The deck of the boat was even more exquisite. It was obviously the product of burning spirit stones. Chanji silently stuffed the lotus seat that he had taken out halfway back into his pocket. Let's go. Lone Moon led the group onto the boat. He turned back to Chanji and said, Court Lord Chanji, please lead the way. Of course. Chanji nodded. He walked forward and gave Lone Moon the general direction of Haoran Court. Lone Moon set the direction of the immortal boat and took the opportunity to chat with Chanji. He also asked him about the basic situation of Hao Ran Court. Coincidentally, Hao Ran Court was on the uncrouped sea, east of the southern land. It was much faster to go there from the southern land than from the outside. The uncrouped sea was filled with astral winds all year round. It was also a place full of yin qi. That was why cultivators usually did not enter the uncrouped sea. But Hao Ran Court was a Buddhist sect. Buddhist cultivation techniques were especially effective against yin and evil things. That was why they were the only sect on the uncrouped sea. They lived far away from the world. It was also because Buddhist cultivators cultivated with merit that their disciples were all highly skilled in Buddhist Dharma. Although their combat ability was not as good as sword cultivators, their merit was different from ordinary cultivators' techniques. The heavenly Tao was extremely stingy with merit. Even if they accumulated it for many lifetimes, they might not be able to accumulate much. One could tell just by looking at Yin Heng previously. He had saved the world several times in a row, and saved thousands of living beings. That was why he had so much merit. Moreover, after Songren was reborn, they were all taken away. It was obvious how difficult it was to cultivate merit. However, merit was very beneficial. The heavenly Tao would be biased towards people with merit, specifically in terms of luck. Moreover, merit could prevent evil from invading. And in the later stages, it was even possible to cultivate the golden body. There was another hidden benefit. If he did a good deed, and was sincerely thanked by others, he would gain merit. In other words, it was like giving the person a good person stamp. If someone attacks someone with merit, they would be stained with bad karma, which was not beneficial to their cultivation. Therefore, regardless of whether it was a devil cultivator or an immortal cultivator, they would not easily provoke a Buddhist cultivator. However, from what Chanji said, Hao Ran Court was different from ordinary Buddhists. They were more nosy, different from other Buddhist cultivators who did not care about worldly affairs, or went deep into the mortal realm to cultivate merit. They even meddled in the affairs of the immortal cultivation world. If there was any injustice, they would intervene. Although they were Buddhist cultivators, the disciples in their sect were not weak. In fact, they had the most soul formation cultivators among all the sections. It was said that they had a patriarch in charge, a perfected immortal who had already cultivated the golden body. However, for the sake of the sect, they had not ascended to the immortal world. It could be considered a very unique sect. In the past, there were people who did not believe in heresy who challenged them. However, after a few times, no other sect dared to challenge them directly. Moreover, they were indeed fair. As time passed, they became the recognized arbitration organization in the entire sacred arrival realm. Hao Ran Court was not originally called Hao Ran Court, but Buddha Heart Sect. However, because they were too nosy, everyone looked for them to uphold justice. Therefore, they changed their name to Hao Ran Court, which meant righteousness. From the looks of it, it was normal for them to stand up for Fatty and go against divine imperial sect. However, Loman's expression darkened. Whether it really was righteousness, it seemed like he could only find out when he went there. Master. Inside the ship, Chef spoke hesitantly, but his hands did not stop moving as he placed the pastries on the table. Shenning turned to look at him. Chef turned to look outside, at Father Nyo and Chanji who were chatting. That person is it? Shenning nodded. Chef's frown deepened. A moment later, as if thinking of something, he sat down at the side after placing the pastries. With a serious expression he said, Master, there's something I've always wanted to ask you. Shenning grabbed a piece of pastry and stuffed it into her mouth. What is it? Ever since Master woke up from hibernation. He paused and shook his head. No, I should say after Senior Shun. After Big Sister defeated that invading manager, my power seemed to have changed. I don't know if it's an illusion, but I keep feeling like. You didn't feel wrong. Shenning continued. You did. What? Chef jumped to his feet in shock. Shenning thought for a moment, then continued. This matter is more complicated. I should say that this was the original plan of this plane. Now it's just going back to normal. Then Kai Tian and the others. That's why my sister said they were messing around blindly. If that's the case, what about you, Master? What will you do? As if thinking of something, his face paled. He grabbed the person in front of him and looked her up and down. Will you become like before because of me? Shenning dropped the pastry in her hand after being pulled by him. What a waste. Master. Seeing that she did not respond, I Ching became even more anxious. Don't worry. Shenning waved her hand. I'm fine. Nothing will happen to me in the future. But, even if you're different, you're still my assistant. That won't change, right? Do you understand? He did not understand. In other words, you'll have to work for me for the rest of your life. Shenning tilted her head and thought about it. As for the specific reason, I'll have to look at it again to be clear. But your change will not affect me at all. You won't go into hibernation again. I Ching looked at her seriously for a while. After confirming that what she said was true, he heaved a sigh of relief. That's good. Should I tell Father Nyo about this in advance? That's good too. There's no need for that. She immediately shook her head. Now is not the time to talk about it. What's more, there's still a big matter to settle. She seemed to have thought of something. Her eyes narrowed. It hadn't started yet. If Father Nyo wanted to blow up, he could blow up later. Anyway, he should be used to it by now. A zero. Chapter 486. Yes, Master, no problem, Master. Chef nodded obediently, pretending that he didn't know anything. He turned to look outside, at a certain someone who was still chatting happily with Chanji. Then he glanced at Shenning, who was right in front of him. For some reason he blushed. All of a sudden, he pulled her over and with lightning speed, lowered his head and kissed her on the lips, leaving her in a split second. Then his face turned as red as an exploding tomato. He subconsciously licked his lips. It tasted like osmanthus cake. Master is so sweet indeed. Shenning. Can't you be more serious when kissing? Do you think we're playing house? Che dash. Master, I'm going to cook first. Before she could finish, Chef held his flushed face and turned to run for his life. Because he was in such a hurry, he even tripped over the doorsill. His leg turned, and he directly knocked Fatty, who was coming towards him, to the ground. In the next moment, he immediately got up and turned to leave. Lady Shen, fellow Taoist chef. Fatty, who almost had a nosebleed, sat on the ground, clutching his nose in confusion. Shenning sighed. He had meat to eat, but he insisted on drinking broth. Is he stupid? Ah! Fatty was even more confused. Why did Miss Shen suddenly become so unfathomable? Lone Moon and the others flew for 3 whole days before they passed through the southern land and arrived at the uncrouped sea. Chanji was right. There were strong winds and inchi all over the sea. Ordinary Dharma artifacts would not be able to pass through. Fellow Taoist Lone Moon. He took out his own lotus seat and was just about to remind everyone of the dangers of the sea. Lone Moon, however, steered the spirit boat into the sea. The moment they entered the uncrouped sea, a transparent protective array rose up around the spirit boat, enveloping the entire immortal boat and blocking the strong winds and inchi outside. Not even a slight breeze could enter the boat. What did you say? Lone Moon turned to look at Chanji. No, nothing. Chanji silently stuffed his lotus seat back into the lotus seat. He suddenly felt embarrassed for the second time. The spirit boat sailed on the uncrouped sea for another 2 days before they arrived at Haoran Court. From afar, a golden light flashed across the horizon. The originally dark and gloomy uncrouped sea seemed to have been split apart by something. A majestic mountain floated on the surface of the sea. On top of it, there were countless golden palaces that emitted a faint golden light. It was as if a bright lamp had been lit in the middle of the sea. It was exceptionally eye-catching. As they got closer, they realized that it wasn't that the palaces were originally golden, but that they were surrounded by a faint layer of Buddhist light, which made them golden. Fellow Taoists, we've arrived, Chanji said with a friendly smile. Lone Moon then controlled the spirit boat to fly in and stop in the square of a huge hall. As soon as he got off the boat, he heard a faint Buddhist voice coming from the hall. Compared to the extravagance of the other sect masters, Chanji was much more low-key. Even on the square, there were only 2 Buddhist cultivators who came to welcome them. Chanji stepped forward to speak to the 2 disciples. A moment later, he turned back to look at Lone Moon anxiously and said, "Something has happened in the sect. I have to rush over to deal with it. Fellow Taoists, you must have had a long journey. Why don't you rest in the guest rooms first? I will go over later and show you around Haoran Court. What do you think?" "Since it's urgent, Court Lord, please go ahead. There's no need to mind us." Lone Moon nodded politely. Chanji then instructed the 2 disciples beside him to lead them to the guest rooms. Lone Moon looked at the 2 Buddhist cultivators in front of him. He realized that their cultivation levels weren't very high. They looked like they had just reached the golden core stage. Judging by their bone age, they didn't seem very old either. However, there was already a faint layer of golden light surrounding their bodies. However, to be able to train by the court lord's side, they must be quite talented. "Fellow Taoists, are you 2 disciples of Court Lord Chanji?" Lone Moon asked casually. The 2 of them paused and turned to look at him. Then they answered respectfully, "Supremacy, we are just ordinary disciples guarding the mountain in Haoran Court. We are not the Court Lord's disciples." "Oh." Lone Moon's eyes narrowed. "I see that the 2 of you are quite talented, but you are just ordinary disciples. Haoran Court is indeed an impressive place. Even the disciples under your sect are so outstanding. Supremacy, you flatter us." The disciple bowed politely. Although he spoke modestly, his eyes unconsciously became a little warmer, and there was even a little bit of glory in them, as if this kind of praise was only natural. "Esteemed guests, we have arrived at the guest rooms." The 2 of them stopped outside a quiet courtyard. The Buddhist cultivator on the left took out a restriction token and hung it outside the courtyard door. Instantly, there was a flash of light. The courtyard door opened automatically, revealing a small building inside. "Esteemed guests, please enter. We will not disturb your rest any further. Thank you for leading the way. This is my duty." The 2 of them bowed again before turning around and leaving. Lone Moon and the others walked in and found that the inside was even bigger than it looked from the outside. In front of them was a very big courtyard. In the middle of it was a small lotus pond. Beside the lotus pond, there were green trees and a small pavilion. Opposite them was a 3-story wooden building. It looked very elegant. The moment they entered, they felt the thick spirit chi rushing towards them. No wonder there was a restriction outside. The spirit chi in this small courtyard was comparable to that of ordinary cultivation cave abodes. "It looks like we will have to stay here for a while." Lone Moon turned to look at them. "There are quite a lot of rooms here. The first floor is for chef to cook. We will stay on the second floor. Shening, you can find a room on the 3rd floor." Why? She did not want to climb the 3rd floor. Lone Moon rolled his eyes. "Look at your bad temper. If we don't stay away from you, you will tear the building down. If you don't stay on the top floor, who will? AI is so troublesome. Why must there be a 3rd floor?" "Shut up." He glared at her. After thinking for a while, he added, "At most, I will set up a transportation array for you on the 1st floor." Oh, he should have said so earlier if there was an elevator. "Let's go and tidy up first." Lone Moon then walked towards the small building. Chef also took out his kitchen utensils and prepared to change the kitchen. He had just taken a few steps when he realized that Shening was standing in the same spot. "What are you doing?" "Father Neo, what is that?" She suddenly pointed to the pond in the courtyard. Lone Moon took a look and answered, "A lotus. But it should be a spirit lotus for it to grow in such a place." "Oh," Shening replied. "This pond doesn't seem as clean as the river where the rabbit lives." "Nonsense. The southern land is a spirit river. What's more, there are things planted in this pond. The pond water is naturally not as clear as the river water," Lone Moon replied casually. Seeing that she still did not want to move, he could only drag her all the way up. "The transportation array can only be set up later. This time you climb up for me." Chapter 487. It had to be said that Haoran Court's guest rooms were of high standard. Not only was it a place to receive guests, but all the utensils inside were very exquisite. What's more, he actually found some fasting pills, spirit-returning pills, and other common elixirs in the room. Lone Moon glanced at the elixirs, then turned to I Ching. Chef, what do you think of this Hao Ran court? Did that Chanji really want to help Fatty? Or did he have other motives? I Ching frowned and poured a cup of tea for Shining, who was sprawled on the table. Don't trust him completely. No. Fatty retorted subconsciously, without a hint of suspicion. Isn't Hao Ran court the fairest place? And Master Chanji blocked the immortal artifact for me just now. He doesn't look like a bad person. Master, I think they don't. Fatty's voice became softer and softer under Lone Moon's gaze. Finally, he shrank into a ball, feeling wronged. Humph. Someone so stupid that he was sold by Divine Imperial Sect for decades. With your intellect and judgment, what right do you have to speak? His heart hurt. He missed Brother Rabbit. Lone Moon ignored him and turned to continue speaking to Chef. I think this Chanji's timing is too coincidental. He didn't come earlier or later. He just had to come when Fatty was beating up Divine Imperial Sect. Although on the surface, he was indeed on Fatty's side, and Divine Imperial Sect also paid a price. But he still felt that something was strange about this. If he has other motives, what are they? I Ching asked. This was something that Lone Moon could not figure out. The only thing that people coveted about Fatty was his special physique. Buddhist cultivators cultivated merit and could not kill. They could not be tainted by the smell of blood. They were indeed the only people who would not have evil intentions towards Fatty, especially when Fatty's identity was completely exposed. No matter how he looked at it, Hao Ran court's action seemed to be an act of justice. It was frank, and without a trace of selfishness. But it was precisely because of this that he became even more suspicious. Suddenly thinking of something, Lone Moon turned to look at a certain person sprawled on the table. Shining, why did you agree to let Fatty come here in the first place? Speaking of which, she was the one who agreed to let Fatty come to Hao Ran court. Although after the secret of Fatty's physique was exposed, it was indeed not suitable for them to stay in the southern land for long. After all, demons preferred Tripitaka's meat. Huh? Shining tilted her head and answered. Because of that light bulb. Before she could finish speaking, a familiar voice suddenly came from outside. Fellow Taoists, have you rested well? The few of them exchanged glances and walked out. Only then did they see Chanji waiting outside the courtyard. Court Lord Chanji, you came so quickly. Lone Moon greeted him. Have you settled the important matters in the sect? He seemed to have thought of something and frowned. It's just some daily matters. It's just that I was in a hurry, so I went over to take a look. I hope everyone doesn't mind. What are you talking about, Hall Master? I'm already very grateful for your hospitality. You're too kind, fellow Taoist. Chanji smiled even more warmly. After another round of exchanging pleasantries with Lone Moon, Chanji suggested that he bring them around the sect to familiarize themselves with the place. Lone Moon naturally would not reject this opportunity to openly explore Hao Ran court. Hence, he followed Chanji out the door. Chanji did not seem to have any reservations either. He led the group from the guest rooms in the side hall. They first went to the main hall for a stroll, then brought them to the side halls on the left and right, as well as dozens of halls of various sizes. Along the way they met many disciples. Some had high cultivation levels, but there were indeed many high-level cultivators. Compared to Divine Imperial Sect, there were many more. What's more, they were all like Chanji, amiable and friendly. Lone Moon did not know if it was because they were Buddhist cultivators, but they did not have the arrogance that other cultivators had. What's more, they all had Buddha's aura around them. The more Lone Moon looked at them, the more uncomfortable he felt. Yet he could not put his finger on what was wrong. If he had to put his finger on it, he would say that the entire sect's atmosphere was overly harmonious. There was no sense of impatience at all. This is our sect's pill refinement room. Chanji pointed to a small hall in front of them. Oh, you guys refine pills too? Lone Moon asked subconsciously. Chanji smiled and said, Hao Ran court is far away from the mortal world. It is not as convenient to go out to sea as other immortal sections. To avoid trouble, the disciples of our sect refine some regular pills themselves. although they are not as good as other pill refinement sects, because how Ran Court is bathed in Buddha's aura all year round. The ordinary pills that they refine are surprisingly more effective than ordinary pills. Oh, there's such a thing? Longmun's eyes narrowed. Indeed. Chanji nodded. Then, as if recalling something, he turned to Fatty and said, "Oh yes, fellow Taoist Huize. You were seriously injured in the battle with Divine Imperial Sect. I wonder if you have recovered. If you don't mind, there are spirit recovery pills in the guest rooms. They can help alleviate your injuries." "Thank you, Court Lord." Fatty hurriedly bowed and said, "When we were in the southern land, Master helped me heal my injuries. I have recovered now. He even refined 100 flying swords to repay his debt." "That's good." Chanji heaved a sigh of relief. Then he brought them into the pill room to look around. Indeed, as he said, there were only some commonly used spirit herbs in the pill room. They really only refined some commonly used pills. After exiting the pill room, he led them around the remaining halls. They were all very ordinary places, and there weren't even a few disciples around. Only then did he bring them to the back of the mountain. As they walked, he introduced, "The back of the mountain is where the sect cultivates spirit herbs. It is also a place where the disciples meditate and cultivate. It is still early now. It is the time when there are many people." Just as he finished speaking, the few of them passed through a field of low-level spirit herbs. Suddenly, a huge pond appeared in front of them. At first it looked to be about 100 meters wide. There were many lotus flowers in the pond. Red petals filled the entire pond. A faint golden light enveloped the lotus pond. I Ching, who was carrying his master, stopped in his tracks. His eyes widened, and he subconsciously turned around. "Master, this place." Shining adjusted her position. She moved her head from Chef's left shoulder to his right. "I smelled it from afar." I Ching's expression immediately darkened. The three people in front did not notice the people behind them. Longmun and Chanji walked forward and realized that there was an empty space beside the lotus pond. There were hundreds of disciples sitting cross-legged on it. All of them were in a meditative state. Their bodies were also surrounded by the same Buddhist light as the one around the lotus pond. "This lotus pond has been here since the founding of our sect. I heard that it was personally built by the founder of our sect. It is said that it has been here for millions of years." As if he knew what they were thinking, Chanji smiled and explained, "Back then, the founder achieved his Tao and ascended to immortality here. That is why every generation of disciples in our sect sees this place as a holy land. They meditate here every day. Perhaps because of this, over time, the lotus pond has also gained some Buddhist qualities." "I see. No wonder there was Buddhist light above the pond." Chapter 488. Chanji led the few of them around the meditating disciples and walked to the side of the pond. He plucked off a lotus seed and handed it to Longmun. "The lotus seeds in this pond are bathed in Buddhist light every day. They have already turned into spirit plants. We only get one lotus every 100 years. Not only can they be made into Dharma artifacts, but the lotus seeds also have the miraculous effect of calming one's mind. Fellow Taoist, why don't you give it a try?" "Oh." Longmun received it curiously. Indeed, a thick wave of spirit chi surged towards him. It did not even lose out to top-grade spirit herbs. There was even a faint pleasant fragrance. Habitually, he turned around and was about to hand it to a certain foodie. "Foodieing you?" "No." Shunning rejected immediately, a look of disgust on her face. "I hate vegetarian food. Forget it if you don't want to eat it. Little ingrate, do you think I want to give it to you?" Longmun glared at her and started to pick up the lotus seed. Shunning glanced at the lotus in his hand and narrowed her eyes. Suddenly she said, "Chef." "Yes, master." "Where do the lotus pods grow?" "Naturally, it grew out of the lotus." "Lotus? Is it the same as the dandelion and the radish?" "Yes, master. Dandelions also have seeds." "Oh." Longmun, who was about to eat. A certain image that was not a river crab flashed across his mind like a bolt of lightning. F***CK. I suddenly don't feel like eating at all. I even feel like vomiting. What's going on? The corner of Longmun's mouth twitched as if he had been scalded. He turned around and shoved the lotus seed back into Chanji's hands. Court Lord, this item is very precious. I think it's best that we don't waste it. Then he looked up at the sky and said, Thank you for today, Court Lord. It's getting late, so I won't trouble you any further. We should return to the guest room. After saying that, he turned around and left. As he walked, he swung his right hand, that he had just used to break off the lotus seed. He even made several dirt removal spells in a row, as if he was stained with something dirty, and couldn't wash it clean no matter how hard he tried. Chanji. Fatty. What happened just now? The four of them stayed in Hao Ran Court for a month. Other than Chanji, who would occasionally come to greet him, no one else came to disturb him. Even if he occasionally went out for a stroll, the people he met were extremely polite. Moreover, they could come and go as they pleased, and there was nothing suspicious about them. The entire sect was just like its name, righteous and incomparably calm. Even Lone Moon began to wonder if he was thinking too much. Last time, Chanji said that he wanted those scum from Divine Imperial Sect to cripple their own cultivation within 3 months. Lone Moon decided to stay in the Hao Ran sect for 3 months and see how things turned out. In any case, Fatty's debt had not been repaid. In these 3 months, they could keep an eye on Fatty's weapon refinement, talisman crafting, and so on. Although the spiritual weapons in the lower realm were not worth much, if he ascended in the future, he could still return them. However, for some reason, Fatty's cultivation seemed to be stuck at the late stage of the soul formation stage, even though he had already resolved the knot in his heart. Everything else was normal, but no matter how he tried to circulate his spiritual energy, he was unable to break through. He even suspected that Fatty's cheat had lost its effect. Otherwise, why would it suddenly get stuck? On the other hand, the fat man was not anxious about this at all. In fact, he felt that this was normal, and he said righteously, Master is so amazing, but you still haven't ascended, right? It seems that I still have a long way to go. How do you know that I can't ascend? If he wanted to go to the immortal realm, he could do it any time. Isn't that so? Fatty faltered. Isn't Master unable to ascend because he can't abstain from eating? Who can't abstain from eating? You're the one who can't abstain from eating. Your whole family can't abstain from eating. Double the training for today. No, Master. Get lost. Who's your master? Perhaps it's because of the realm gate. I Ching looked up at the sky and said in a low voice, The seal on the realm gate has not been lifted. Based on Fatty's strength, even if his cultivation increases, he will not be able to ascend. You mean? Lone Moon's expression darkened. Before the nomological power recovers, Fatty can't ascend? Yes. I Ching nodded. Shit. Lone Moon frowned. Then how long were they going to stay in this small world? Perhaps. I Ching turned to look at the lotus pond outside and said, It will be resolved very soon. What? Lone Moon faltered and was about to ask. All of a sudden, the ground began to tremble, and a huge boom rang out. The righteous noble sect seemed to be under attack, and its grand spell formation activated. Golden light spread out to cover the entire sect, and even the restrictive spells in the courtyard were dispelled. What's going on? Lone Moon stood up. The shaking did not stop. In fact, it seemed to be getting stronger and stronger. The usually quiet sect started to make noises. There was also a faint cold aura coming from the ground. On closer inspection, it seemed to come from the bottom of the sea under the mountain. The two of them walked out. Fatty also sensed that something was wrong. He released his divine perception to take a look. Indeed, the disciples were flying out of the sect in a panic. Most of them were flying towards the sea under the mountain. There's something at the bottom of the mountain, I Ching said with certainty. Lone Moon frowned. Just as he was about to ask for more details, a disciple rushed over and bowed to them. Seniors, the court master has ordered that something big has happened in the sect. It is not convenient for you to stay any longer. Please follow me down the mountain and leave the uncrouped sea. What exactly happened? Lone Moon frowned. Why did Chanji suddenly ask them to leave? The disciple looked troubled. I am only following the orders of the sect master to bring you down the mountain. I am not sure about anything else. Now that the protective mountain array has been activated, we can only go down the mountain through the array at the back. Time is of the essence. It will be too late if we are late. Please follow me quickly, seniors. Lone Moon exchanged a look with Chef. Does it have anything to do with the thing at the bottom of the mountain? Senior. The disciple's face paled. He looked even more panicked. I don't know either. It's all right. Bring us directly to your court, master, Lone Moon said in a low voice. Lone Moon said in a low voice. Given the situation now, something big must have happened. Maybe we can help. The disciple looked up at him. He hesitated for a moment before nodding. All right. Everyone, please follow me. Lone Moon was about to follow on his sword when he suddenly paused. Wait, where's Shening? Bring her along. Otherwise he would lose another one. I Ching nodded. He returned to the house and pulled Shening, who was still chewing on a fruit. Together with Fatty, they flew out with the disciple. Indeed, Chanji was right at the bottom of Haoran Court. He was standing on the surface of the sea. Beside him were tens of soul formation cultivators. One of them had immortal chi about him. Upon closer inspection, Lone Moon realized that he was already an earth immortal. He was just suppressing his cultivation. Chapter 489. They seemed to be working together to maintain an array formation. It was a very complicated multi-layered array formation. Lone Moon looked at it for a long time before he recognized that it was a large-scale seal. However, the array formation was not very strong, and it seemed to be on the verge of breaking. There was also a trace of cold aura that was constantly seeping out of it. They were working together to suppress the array formation, as if to prevent the thing inside from escaping. However, it was obvious that they were not strong enough. The cold aura seeped out of the array formation more and more. The thing inside was hitting the array formation again and again. Every time it hit, the entire Haoran sect shook. Lone Moon frowned and turned to the person beside him. Fatty, go and help them. Yes, master. Fatty immediately rushed over, as if he could not wait any longer. He was good at array formations. Naturally, he knew where to start. He found a direction and conjured a seal to set up the array. He channeled his spirit energy into the array and worked with the others to complete it. Why are you? Chanji looked surprised. He glanced at Fatty, then turned to look at Lone Moon and the other two. Focus on setting up the array. Lone Moon reminded him. The array formation is not complete yet. Chanji finally reacted. He hurriedly turned to look at the array formation. With Fatty's help, the pressure on everyone lessened. The cold aura seeping out of the array formation also gradually disappeared. In less than half an hour, the clashing of the array formation slowly stopped. The sea also became calm again. The light of the array formation slowly dimmed. Thank you for your help, fellow Taoist. Chanji nodded at Fatty, then looked at Lone Moon and the others. It was nothing. Don't stand on ceremony, Court Lord. Fatty smiled and replied. May I ask, Court Lord, what is sealed in this array formation? Lone Moon looked at the location of the seal and asked. Everyone here is a soul formation cultivator. Why does it require all of you to work together to barely seal it? This. Chanji's expression changed. He seemed to be hesitating. It's a ferocious beast. An old man behind him answered. It was the Earth Immortal. Patriarch. There's no harm in telling them. The old man waved his hand and stopped Chanji from objecting. These few don't look like evil people. Perhaps they might be able to help us if we tell them. Fellow Taoist, you are? Lone Moon glanced at the elder. An Earth Immortal could actually stay in the lower realm for such a long time without ascending. Furthermore, he was not an itinerant immortal who had disintegrated. This was indeed rare. This is the ancestor of my sect, Exalted Immortal Jingda, Chanji introduced. So it's fellow Taoist Jingda. Lone Moon cupped his fists politely and replied subconsciously. However, the expressions of the other cultivators present changed. Jingda's status in the sacred arrival realm was different from that of the other cultivators. It was not wrong to say that he was the #1 cultivator in the cultivation world. Perhaps because he was a perfected immortal, everyone addressed him as Exalted Immortal. Lone Moon blurted out, "Fellow Taoist." Even Jingda could not help but frown. But he did not deliberately correct him. Trapped beneath this seal is the ferocious beast Draconic Weep. What sob? Lone Moon was really shocked and his eyes widened. What? Shening turned to look at Chef out of habit. I Ching lowered his head and explained. Master, the Weeping Sorcerer is an ancient ferocious beast. It appeared in this plane at the same time as the dragons and phoenixes. Its power is not inferior to the divine race. But ferocious beasts are different from the divine race. Ferocious beasts do not have sentience, and they are born to kill. In the ancient times, the divine race fought with the ferocious beasts and killed all the ferocious beasts. Logically speaking, there should be no more ancient ferocious beasts in this world. Then what is this weeping beast? It's a weeping sorcerer. I Ching thought for a moment before continuing. Legend has it that the ancient ferocious beast weeping sorcerer uses yin qi as its soul, blood qi as its spirit, and turbid grievous qi as its bones. It has a violent temperament and only knows how to kill. What's more, it likes to eat flesh and blood. As long as it is alive, it will eat it. I see. Shen Ying's eyes narrowed. Lone Moon's expression darkened. Why would an ancient ferocious beast appear in the mortal world? Even if it appeared, it should have appeared in the divine world, right? After all, it was at the same time. I'm not very sure about that either. Chanji sighed and said, Years ago, when the ancestral master of my sect discovered this weeping sorcerer, he sealed it here and established the Buddha Heart sect, which is now the Haoran court. He wanted to use the Buddha light in the sect to purify this ferocious beast's yin qi. He seemed to have thought of something and shook his head. Unfortunately, after so many years, this ferocious beast has not been dealt with. In fact, it has become even more ferocious. Now, even the seal that the ancestral master left behind can no longer suppress it. Just sealing it here is not the solution. Once the ancient ferocious beast appeared, no mortal cultivator would be able to stop it no matter how many of them there were. No, it should be said that even in the immortal world, it would not be easy to subdue it. Sigh. How would we not know that the seal is only temporarily keeping it here, so that it cannot go out and harm people? Chanji looked helpless. He raised his head to look at Lone Moon, and something flashed across his eyes. Then it quickly disappeared. But apart from this, there is no other way. Lone Moon frowned. Of course there were other ways, but the most effective way was for him or Chef to deal with it directly. Dealing with this ferocious beast was not a problem. The problem was where this ferocious beast came from. Why would a creature that was already extinct in the divine world appear here? It's just that the power of the seal is getting weaker and weaker, while the ferocious beast is getting stronger and stronger. What's more, this is already the third time in recent times. It wants to break through the seal. It looks like the seal will be completely broken soon, unless... Chanji seemed to have thought of something, and immediately shook his head, his expression troubled. A moment later, he turned to the few of them and said, Fellow Taoists, at the end of the day, this is a matter for the Haoran court. It has nothing to do with you. It's no longer safe here. Everyone, please leave as soon as possible. Lone Moon's expression darkened. Before he could speak, Fatty beside him spoke up in a righteous tone. Now is such a critical time. How can we stay out of this? If we really let the ancient ferocious beast out, all living beings will be killed. No one will be able to escape. What's more, we are not cowards who are afraid of death. Isn't that right, Master? Once he finished speaking, he looked at Lone Moon with a righteous expression. Haha. Lone Moon rolled his eyes at him. Then you go and deal with the ferocious beast. You're talking as if you can do it. Fatty immediately lowered his head timidly. Lone Moon could not be bothered with this hot-blooded young man. He turned to Chanji and said, Court Lord, what you're saying is that there are other ways to stop the ferocious beast from coming out? There were ways in the past, but... Chanji looked at him, the light in his eyes flickering. He looked like he wanted to say something but was hesitating. A moment later, he gritted his teeth and said, The array that seals the ferocious beast was created by the founding master of our sect. The method of setting up the array has been passed down from generation to generation. Naturally, we've learned all of it. Now that the ferocious beast has broken the seal, The most effective way is to reseal it. How do we reseal it? Lone Moon asked. Chapter 490. This seal requires 24 cultivators, who are at least at the soul formation stage, to set up different arrays at the same time. Our sect originally had 24 soul formation cultivators, but Chanji pointed at the cultivators around him and continued. A few months ago, one of our cultivators died, causing a gap in the array. Although Patriarch Jingde can patch it up, there will be a gap when the new seal replaces the old one. If no one is guarding the place now, we will not be able to defend the array. If no one is guarding it, the beast will take the opportunity to escape. That's why we don't dare to reseal it. So, Lone Moon's expression darkened. You want us to guard you when you reseal it? I know that's a little too much, Chanji sighed. Chanji sighed and said, the ancient beast is really too dangerous. Although it's only for a moment, it's hard to avoid other problems. That's why it's always been our sect's elder, who personally guards the array. Sigh, everyone, please leave quickly. If it's just guarding the array, we're willing to try. Fatty quickly stepped forward and said, Court Master, we can't delay the sealing of the beast. Leave it to us. Chanji was still hesitant. Guarding the array is very important. Fellow Taoist Huize alone, I'm afraid. Fatty could only look at Lone Moon for help. Master! Chanji also turned to look at Lone Moon inquiringly. Lone Moon's eyes narrowed. After a while, he sighed and replied, including me and Chef, the three of us should be enough. Since Fatty had already agreed, Lone Moon could not reject. Then let's do it. Only then did Chanji look relieved. He cupped his fists and bowed solemnly to the few of them. This is for the sake of the world. Chanji thanks everyone. The cultivators behind him also looked delighted. Their eyes lit up as they looked at the few of them. There's no time to lose. Let's start now. With that said, the few of them lined up and returned to their original positions. Chanji pointed to the middle of the group and said, everyone, please guard the eye of the array. Be careful not to let the yin qi inside leak out. Fatty nodded and walked towards the center of the array. Lone Moon and I Ching exchanged a look before pulling Shunning over to stand with them. At Chanji's command, the Earth Immortal and the Soul Formation cultivators activated the array. Instantly, many different types of arrays appeared above their heads, layer by layer. In less than a moment, the huge array reappeared beneath their feet. The sea below them began to surge unstably, as if something was about to jump out of the array. Fatty's expression became even more nervous, as he hurriedly summoned his spirit sword and cast a spell. He kept a close eye on his feet, so that he could discover the yin qi of the ferocious beast at the first instance, and stop it in time. He was highly focused and his heart was in suspense, afraid that he would miss something. However, when he unintentionally turned to look, he discovered that the three people beside him were standing leisurely, as if this matter had nothing to do with them. They did not even lower their heads to look at the formation. Not to mention the person, who was focused on munching on the fruit. Fatty stared blankly for a moment, a dumbfounded look on his face. Master, weren't they supposed to guard the array together? Why did it seem like he was the only one who was nervous? What's the rush? Lone Moon gave him a look, as if he was looking at an idiot. Although the actors are in place, the show hasn't started yet. What did he mean? Before Fatty could react, the new seal above them had already been completed, forming an array that was exactly the same as the one beneath their feet. It was slowly descending, about to replace the seal below them. Suddenly, he heard a crisp cracking sound, as if something had been opened. He saw that in the middle of the two overlapping arrays, a huge black hole had opened up. It was right in the middle of the array, right beneath their feet. In an instant, the entire sky was filled with yin qi, filling up the entire array. The seal had been opened. Not good. Fatty's heart jumped. He turned and shouted in Chanji's direction. Court Lord, the ferocious beast is about to. Before he could finish speaking, he saw Chanji suddenly smile at him. It was no different from before, but for some reason, it was filled with malice. Fatty felt a chill run down his spine. and a chill ran down his spine. Only then did he realize what was going on. In the next moment, the ground beneath their feet sank and their vision turned black. The few of them instantly fell into another world, and the array above them disappeared. Their surroundings fell silent. Only the familiar sound of someone chewing on a fruit could be heard. Lone Moon conjured a fire elemental spell to light up the surroundings, but it was only limited to the few of them. Everywhere else was still pitch black. Master! Fatty was still in a daze. He turned to look at Lone Moon, as if he was a wounded cub. What? Lone Moon rolled his eyes. Is this the first time you've been lied to? Don't worry, you'll get used to it after a few more times. What kind of logic was that? Fatty frowned, but for some reason, he did not feel that upset anymore. After a while he said, Master, you're saying that Court Chanji was lying when he said that he was going to reseal the ferocious beast. He purposely locked us in here. The seal was indeed a lie, but the ferocious beast might not be the same. Ah! Fatty was stunned. Roared in the next moment, a loud roar resounded in his ears. A few meters away, two balls of red light suddenly appeared and floated towards them. Upon closer inspection, they realized that they were actually a pair of eyes. Beneath the eyes was a huge monster that they could not see clearly. Its entire body was black, and it was shrouded in layers of black yin chi. It opened its huge mouth, and was about to bite the few of them. Fatty felt his heart sink. In the next moment, his entire body seemed to be frozen. He could not move at all. The overwhelming pressure seemed to be crushing him. He instinctively wanted to kneel down, but Lone Moon pulled him back and lifted him up. Seeing that the huge beast was about to bite him, I Ching was just about to act when Shenning suddenly frowned. She said coldly, "It stinks." With that said, she suddenly raised her hand and slapped the beast. "I told you not to breathe at people. Don't you have any F***king idea that you have bad breath?" With a loud bang, the ferocious giant beast instantly smashed into the ground with a loud thud. A few crisp cracking sounds could be faintly heard, as if something was breaking. Awu, the thick, indistinguishable yin chi on the ferocious beast's body instantly disappeared. Its head was directly stuck in the crack in the ground, unable to be pulled out no matter how hard it tried. It could only widen its pair of bloodshot eyes and look in the direction of the few people in horror. Its huge body trembled, and after a long time, it finally let out a weak cry. Meow. Fatty. I Ching. Lone Moon. What happened to the ancient ferocious beast? Chef silently kept his sword. If he had known, he would have done it earlier. He would not have troubled Master. Chapter 491. It was as if Fatty was meeting Shenning for the first time. He scanned her from head to toe in disbelief. Was Miss Shen so powerful? As if sensing his gaze, Shenning suddenly turned around and handed something over to him. With a serious expression she asked, "Do you want some fruit?" Fatty paused. He looked at the fruit in her hand that was obviously bitten off. Why was she asking him to eat fruit again? Wait, could it be that she despised the fact that the beast had just spat on the fruit? Was that why she wanted to give it to him? No. Miss Shen was definitely not that kind of person. She must have seen that he was frightened, so she gave it to him to calm him down. She only gave him half of it because there was only one left. That must be it. No need. Thank you, Miss Shen. Fatty shook his head. Oh. Shenning retracted her hand with a look of disappointment. Then she threw it away, took out a new one and continued to chew on it. Fatty. He felt as if he had been stabbed somewhere. It hurt. Where are we? Shenning asked. We should be underwater, Lone Moon replied casually. Then, he took out a pearl, and their surroundings lit up. It was not just the few of them. Everything around them lit up. It was only then that the Fatty discovered that they were indeed at the bottom of the water. They were surrounded by a bubble-like spirit formation. Lone Moon must have set up this array the moment they fell into the water. The bottom of the water was desolate. Apart from a trembling beast, there was nothing else. This place was not big. It was only a few 100 feet away. They could see the end of it at a glance. It looked like a body of water that had been specially created. Lone Moon controlled the barrier and brought the few of them to the bottom of the water. They looked around, but did not find anything special. Master. Fatty looked at Lone Moon, who seemed to be looking for something. He could not help but ask, when did you find out that Chanji was lying to us? Looking at how calm they were just now, it was obvious that they knew Chanji's motive and came here on purpose. Lone Moon glanced at him and replied, from the moment they told me that the beast in the seal was the sorrowful beast. Wasn't that right from the beginning? Chanji acted like he did not want to implicate us, yet he did not hide the fact that the beast was sealed. Lone Moon snorted. He said he would send us away, yet he made it so clear about the seal. Isn't he obviously trying to drag us down with him? Even the disciple who said he would bring them down the mountain was brought here after Lone Moon had said a few words. It was obvious that it had been arranged from the very beginning. Did they think that he couldn't see through this trick of loosening the reins only to grasp them better? He kept saying that the seal was unstable a few months ago, but we only arrived at Howran Court a month ago. If he really didn't want to implicate us, why did he suggest for us to come here? Chanji to the sorrowful, Chan Long as he said, Chan Chanji and Dao. Time as he Chan Shao and time as well. Time as tu. Sorrowful beast could destroy a small world. But this did not include the sorrowful beast. Chef had told him that the sorrowful beast was an earth beast. Earth beasts were connected to the earth veins of their habitat. Earth beasts could not leave their habitat. In other words, the sorrowful beast was a shut-in beast. Unless it was in danger, it would not come out. Others might not know about this, but Chef, who had inherited the divine heritage, knew it very well. This way, it was obvious that they were talking about the seal array. They were trying to lure them into the array. But I have no enmity with Howran Court. Why would they do this? Fatty still could not understand. Lone Moon scanned him from head to toe. What else could it be? Fatty paused and pointed at himself. Me. Do we have any other Tripiakas meat here? What was Tripiakas meat? But they are Buddhist cultivators? Fatty's eyes widened in disbelief. We can't be sure if they are real Buddhist cultivators. Lone Moon frowned. They must have other motives for locking us here. Let's find out what else is here apart from the beast. So the few of them looked around, but still did not find anything special. Chef, did you find anything? I Ching shook his head. We can see everything here at one glance. There's nothing strange. That's strange. Lone Moon frowned. Why did they put in so much effort to lock us in here? Maybe they don't want to do anything. Shenning suddenly said. The two of them paused and then reacted. That's right. Those people did not know what they were capable of. At most, they would think that they were soul formation cultivators. Under normal circumstances, if they came in and there was a beast inside, it was most likely that, at that moment, 3 pairs of eyes looked down at the beast below. The beast whose head was still stuck in the crack was shocked, and shook even more violently. Meow meow meow. The corner of Lone Moon's mouth twitched. He raised his hand and conjured a chain. He tied the beast up and pulled hard. Only then did Weeping Beast come out. The ferocious beast, which had finally managed to escape, looked up at them weakly. More accurately, it looked at Shenning, and its whole body trembled. Meow, it cried out. It turned and lowered its head. Then it stuffed its head back in. This time it was not stuck. Its whole head was in the crack. Only a ball of black chi was left outside. It shook so hard that it looked like it was going to fall apart. Lone Moon. I Ching. Fatty. How timid was it? It's just a slap, that's all. Lone Moon had no choice but to pull it out again. He even conjured an earth elemental spell to fill up the crack in the ground. Weeping Beast had nowhere to hide. It turned around in a panic. Finally, its eyes rolled back and it fell to the ground motionless. It pretended to be dead. The 3 of them. They gave it 0 points for pretending to be dead. Did it think they were blind? Lone Moon sighed and did not care about it anymore. If Chanji and the others' goal was Fatty's flesh and blood, then it doesn't make sense for them to send him in. Weeping Beast liked to eat flesh and blood too. What good would it do them if Fatty was eaten? Lone Moon looked at the cowardly beast. Unless there's something special about Weeping Beast. Lone Moon suddenly thought of something. He turned to I Ching and said, Chef, Throw the beast in your storage bag to Weeping Beast. The master and disciple pair turned to look at him and sent a wave of resentment. Shining. That has to be eaten. I Ching. That's master's. All right, I'll pay for your food. Chapter 492. I Ching glanced at Shining, then hesitantly opened his storage bag. After searching around for a long time, he finally took out a fish that weighed more than 10 kilograms and handed it over. Here. This was the smallest he had. Lo Moon turned and threw it at the beast below. Perhaps it was too afraid. Sichi did not move at all. It continued to lie on the ground, pretending to be dead. Chef, bring Shining further away, Lo Moon said. Only then did I Ching conjure a seal to create a bubble circle. He brought his master along and swam further away. After a while, Sichi finally moved. A small part of its body, which was made up of black yin chi, carefully moved towards the fish beside it, as if to make sure that no one was stopping it. Only then did he straighten his body and pounce towards the fish with lightning speed. The black aura on its body dispersed and wrapped around the fish. Not long after, he spat out another complete fish bone from his mouth. Lo Moon paused. It doesn't eat bones. By right, this beast, which was made up of yin chi, should be able to digest anything. What's more, whether it was a demon or a human cultivator, bones contain more spirit energy than flesh and blood. Yet Sichi did not eat them. Could it be that Chanji and the other's goal was? Just as he was thinking about it, Sichi flipped over once again and began to play dead. There seems to be something on its stomach. Fatty suddenly pointed downwards. Lo Moon took a closer look. Indeed, there seemed to be something drawn on Sichi's stomach. He did not notice it because of the heavy yin chi earlier. Now there seemed to be a faint white light. He called Chef back and flew down to take a closer look. This is an array formation. Between the heavy black chi, there was indeed an array formation. It was glowing faintly, as if it had just been activated. The more Sichi trembled, the brighter the array formation became. It looks like a transportation array, I Ching said. Just as he finished speaking, there was a flash of white light. Something flew into the array formation. Lo Moon turned back and saw that the fish bone on the ground had disappeared. Chanji and the other's goal was indeed Fatty's corpse. Lo Moon's heart sank. He looked up at the group. Let's go into the array. He made a hand seal and activated the teleportation formation on Weeping's body. In an instant, a bright white light enveloped the four of them. In the next moment, their figures flashed, and they instantly appeared in another body of water. Compared to the darkness of the Weeping Beast, this place was the complete opposite. Golden light shone everywhere, and it was even a little dazzling. Large patches of golden light lit up below, as if the entire body of water had turned golden. He looked down and saw something emitting a golden light. This light was very strange. It was not aggressive at all. Instead, it was warm. Was this the light of merit? Lo Moon paused and subconsciously descended. What he saw shocked them so much that they sucked in a breath of cold air. Bones. There were corpses all over the ground, covering the entire bottom of the water, so dense that there was not a single gap. At first glance, there were hundreds of corpses. Some of them seemed to be eternally old, with half of their bodies submerged in the mud. Some of the skeletons were completely exposed, but they were not complete. There were even some skeletons with obvious signs of fracture. However, all of these skeletons were emitting a faint golden light. All of the light at the bottom of the water came from them. For a moment, the few of them were stunned and did not speak for a long time. Until Fatty murmured, "These are golden bodies, golden bodies." His face suddenly paled, and he began to breathe heavily, as if he had been hit by something. His eyes were listless. "Fatty." Lo Moon paused and then regained his senses. "What's wrong with you? Why are you suddenly? Wait, why are you crying?" "Crying?" Fatty was stunned. He wiped his face and realized that he did not know when his face was covered in tears. His expression was blank, but his face became even paler. "Yes, why am I crying? What's wrong with me? Master." Hey, Fatty, what's wrong with you? Don't scare me." He really looked too abnormal. I don't know." Fatty cried even harder. But his tears could not be stopped. They flowed more and more. He seemed to be unable to bear it and squatted down. I don't know. I'm just... Miss Shen, why am I? He subconsciously looked toward Shining, only to feel a strange emotion welling up in his heart. It was so heavy that he almost could not breathe. For some reason, he just wanted to cry at Shining. He also did not know why he looked for her, but he could not help it. Shen. Miss Shen, He looked like he wanted to say something, but could not say it. Shining looked straight at him, her eyes darkening. Suddenly, she reached out and touched the top of his head. I already know. Fatty was stunned. He only felt a trace of warmth coming from the top of his head. Only then did his chaotic thoughts calm down. The strange emotion in the bottom of his heart also dissipated. In the next moment, he slowly closed his eyes and fainted. What's going on? Lone Moon reflexively helped Fatty up. What's wrong with Fatty? Shining did not speak. Even I Ching's expression darkened at the side, with a hint of anger. Chef. He could only look at I Ching. I Ching clenched his fists by his side, then said, Father Neo, a few days ago on an island near Haoran Court, I found many similar spirit herbs. What spirit herbs? Lone Moon was stunned. He did not understand why he suddenly said this. Soul-nourishing grass. Soul-nourishing. Lone Moon's eyes widened. You mean those elixirs with soul-guiding powder in them came from Haoran Court? Yes. I Ching nodded. The Unkrup Sea is full of yin qi. It is the most suitable place for soul-nourishing grass to grow, and the nearby islands are full of this kind of spirit herb. So only they could bear to add soul-guiding powder to ordinary elixirs. And only they had it. But what has this got to do with Fatty? I Ching's expression darkened. Father Neo, do you remember what happened to the cultivator that Master and I met? That cultivator was not a reincarnated. Lone Moon stopped mid-sentence. He suddenly thought of something. His face paled instantly. He turned to look at Fatty in disbelief. After that cultivator ate that elixir, he was immediately reincarnated, I Ching continued. The elixir naturally does not have such an effect. It only left a mark on his primordial spirit. Someone found this mark and directly reincarnated him into this small world. Cultivators in the lower realm naturally do not have this ability, but Haoran Court has an earth immortal. I Ching's expression darkened. As someone from the immortal realm, he naturally has a way to interfere with reincarnation. Together with the soul-nourishing grass, it is not hard to guess who the person who reincarnated that cultivator into the same small world was. That elixir with soul-guiding powder only left a mark, so that the people of Haoran Court could more easily find his soul. And Fatty. Chapter 493. I Ching looked down at Fatty, who had already fainted, and directly conjured a seal. A stream of spirit qi instantly swept towards his primordial spirit, and in no time, a red mark slowly floated above Fatty's head. Haoran Court and Divine Imperial Sect are in cahoots. Fatty was already imprinted long ago. I Ching let out a long sigh and said, They racked their brains to transfer Fatty's corpse here, not wanting Fatty's soul to reincarnate into other small worlds. And in addition, rumor has it that the previous sect masters of Divine Imperial Sect were born weak and could not live past 30. All these added together, it's obvious. I Ching looked down at the surrounding bones and said word by word. It's not Fatty's first time being the sect master of Divine Imperial Sect, and these bones are all Fatty. The Fatty who would be stripped of his flesh and blood by those cultivators in every lifetime for ascension. And even his bones would be squeezed out of him to the last bit of merit. That's why when he arrived here, he suddenly became so abnormal, so agitated, because every piece of bone at the bottom of the water was all him. Because of his special flesh and blood, he was a golden body of merit in every lifetime. That's why in every lifetime he reincarnated in this small world. He died in the hands of those cultivators. For the so-called cultivation, they used him completely. They even left imprints on his primordial spirit, controlling all his reincarnations, and kept him in Divine Imperial Sect like a pig waiting to be slaughtered. He couldn't help but cry to Shining. But it was just complaining. an injustice that even the heavenly Tao couldn't sue. He could only complain to Shining. Shit, Lone Moon shouted, a never-before-felt anger rising from the bottom of his heart. These bastards! Instantly, the sword chi on his body burst out uncontrollably, sweeping towards the entire bottom of the water like a sharp blade. And in an instant, all the bones on the ground were turned into ashes. The soaring sword chi broke out of the water, and the water that was originally more than 10 meters deep instantly evaporated. Lone Moon's figure flashed, and he was already flying up into the sky. I Ching subconsciously summoned his sword, wanting to follow and help. Chef. Shining suddenly tugged at him. When adults do things, we children shouldn't interfere. With that said, she pointed to the person at her feet. Take Fatty, we'll just watch. If you leave, no one will carry Fatty. Yes, master. I Ching sheathed his sword without hesitation. He picked up Fatty, who weighed more than 150 kilograms, and directly flew out of the completely dry water. When they flew up, they found out that they were in the huge lotus pond at the back mountain of Haoran Court. Sure enough, the thick stench of blood and killing intent he smelled in this place was not wrong at all. Speaking of which, it was quite ironic. A group of Buddhist cultivators, who focused on cultivating merit, actually all had their cultivation base from the corpses of those who died wrongfully in this pool. The commotion here naturally alerted the people of Haoran Court. In less than 10 breaths' time, Chanji led the group of cultivators out. When he saw Lone Moon in the sky, he was shocked and his face was filled with disbelief. You? How could you? Chanji's eyes widened. That's impossible. Humph. Lone Moon sneered. Are you surprised that you didn't get eaten by the beast as you wished? Don't worry, you'll be even more surprised. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned his hand and a sky full of spiritual swords instantly appeared. They densely occupied the entire sky and set up a sky full of swords. With a completely irresistible pressure, they blotted out the sky and covered the earth. Chanji's legs trembled. He lost his balance and fell from the sky. The other cultivators around him were the same. They were so suppressed that they could not even lift their heads. Who exactly are you? Chanji looked at the person in the sky in shock. The kind mask on his face was long gone. In fact, there was a vicious look on his face. This kind of power could not belong to an ordinary cultivator. Suddenly, he thought of something and widened his eyes. Could this person be someone from the upper realm? Who am I? I'm Fatty's master. Lone Moon's eyes turned cold. I'm not much of a person. I'm just very protective. Although he's a fatty, it's not your place to bully him. As he spoke, an even more powerful force descended. The people below could not withstand it. They felt their blood boil and spat out blood. Ayaya. Shening clicked her tongue in an exaggerated manner. She looked up at the furious Father Nyo and said, Father Nyo really treats Fatty differently. I Ching paused and hurriedly said, Master is right. Chanji could not hold on any longer. Just as his divine perception was about to be crushed by the suppressive force, a figure suddenly flew up from the mountain peak. Heretic cultivator, don't you dare be so arrogant. The patriarch of Haoran Court, Earth Immortal Jingda, rushed out and threw the Dharma artifact in his hand at Lone Moon. Instantly, a huge green umbrella appeared in the sky. It grew 10 times bigger and emitted a white light. It attacked Lone Moon. Immortal artifact? Lone Moon paused. He recognized that this was the umbrella that Divine Imperial Sect had taken out twice. They were indeed jackals of the same tribe. The anger in Lone Moon's heart rose once again. He waved the sword in his hand. An array of sword chi flew towards the umbrella. Humph. You think you can defeat me? Before Jingda could finish his sentence, the umbrella was cut in half by the sword. All the immortal chi disappeared, and the umbrella fell to the ground. Lone Moon had not liked this umbrella for a long time. It was clearly a piece of trash. How many times had it appeared? Jingda's eyes widened in disbelief. His immortal artifact was immediately hit by a huge pain in his chest. The backlash from the destruction of his Dharma artifact hit him. His chi and blood flowed in reverse, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. He could not even fly his sword and fell to the ground with Chanji and the others. Oomph! What kind of trash dares to call itself an immortal artifact? Longmun's mocking mode was on full display. I'll show you what a real immortal artifact is. With that said, he turned his hand, and a huge golden bell appeared in his hand. It grew bigger instantly. I Ching, who was watching the show from below, stiffened. Frowning, he asked, Master, Father Nio's is a divine artifact, right? This was obviously the divine refining bell, one of the 10 great divine artifacts. Although this was obviously a replica that Father Nio had Sin Shu make, it was still a divine artifact. Shening patted his shoulder. Hey, if Father Nio says it's an immortal artifact, then it is an immortal artifact, right? Master is right. That is an immortal artifact. Fatty, who had just woken up, the divine refining bell had already fallen. I Ching hurriedly brought his master and the 150-kilogram Fatty out of Hao Ran court. They hid further away. In the next moment, there was a series of rumbling sounds. Under the immense pressure, a large portion of the originally magnificent palace collapsed. The entire mountain of Hao Ran court began to collapse, falling into the sea below, as if it was falling apart. Just as Changji and the others were about to be crushed under the bell, a golden light flashed. The falling divine refining bell suddenly stopped in midair. Huh! Chapter 494. Longmun frowned. He saw that the golden light was coming from the people of Hao Ran court. The cultivators paused. Then a look of joy appeared on their faces. It's the light of merit. We have merit on us. Heretic cultivator, don't even think about hurting us. Merit? Longmun immediately thought of the pool of corpses. The anger in his heart grew. Stealing merit counts as merit? He turned his hand and used his assistant's ability. Suddenly, the golden light on everyone's bodies turned into thousands of golden spots that flew into Longmun's palm and turned into a golden ball. Longmun glanced at it. The golden ball flashed twice and disappeared. He then looked up at a certain spot in the sky. Don't give this kind of thing to people randomly. Suddenly, thunder rumbled in the sky. As if responding to him, there was an inexplicable sense of grievance. And the people below who had lost their merit seemed to have torn off some kind of disguise. Suddenly, ugly black lines started to crawl all over their bodies. This was a sign that they were turning into demons. How? How is this possible? Changji's eyes widened. That person looked like a cultivator. How could he take away their merit so easily? His face was full of fear. He thought of something and shouted to Jingda. Patriarch, he's from the upper realm. He must be from the upper realm. Quick, get the immortal supremacy. Jingda paused. Then his eyes lit up. He seemed to have reacted. He hurriedly took out a purple talisman and forced himself to inject the last bit of spirit energy into it. He shouted, I beg the immortal supremacy to descend and protect the disciples of Hao Ran court. The other disciples followed suit and shouted, I beg the immortal supremacy to descend and protect the disciples of Hao Ran court. Longmun, who was about to continue activating the divine refining bell, paused. From the looks of it, Fatty's matter had something to do with the immortal realm? With a thought, he kept the bell. All right. He waited to see which bastard from the immortal realm it was. Chef. Shening, who was nibbling on a fruit, suddenly said, Open the realm gate. Master? I Ching was confused. But this realm gate is locked by the heavenly Tao. If we force it open, you can open it now. I Ching paused, then seemed to think of something and nodded. Yes, master. He raised his head and glanced at the sky. With just a thought, the nomological power that was locking the realm gate up above instantly dispersed, and the realm gate opened. Almost at the instant the realm gate returned to normal, a ray of heavenly light shone down from the sky. It was as if a door had opened up in the sky. The celestial chi that filled the sky immediately surged into this small world. In an instant, even the half-collapsed Hao Ran court spirit plants began to grow wildly, covering the entire ruins. It's the immortal venerable. The immortal venerable has arrived. A severely injured disciple cried out in surprise. He looked at the light in the sky excitedly, and the fear in his heart was swept away. Even Changji and Jingda looked excited, as if they were about to make a comeback. At the same time, an ethereal voice came from the sky. Who dares to bully my disciples and grand-disciples? Lomun's eyes narrowed. Suddenly, he felt that he had hit them too lightly just now. He should let them know what it meant to feel fear from the bottom of the cultivation world. The light in the sky grew brighter and brighter. A moment later, a figure with immortal chi appeared in the sky, hidden among the clouds. Accompanied by the heavenly voice, the figure floated down slowly. Lomun's mouth twitched. He was getting impatient from waiting. He could not help but scold. What are you waiting for? If you want to come down, then come down. Why are you playing background music for yourself? With that said, he activated the sword array in the sky and threw it towards the sky. In an instant, the sword array wrapped around the foot that had just appeared in the sky and pulled it down. Aya, the so-called immortal supremacy, in the sky suddenly fell like a kite with a broken string, crashing onto the ground. And you guys? Lomun continued to look up at the sky. If you want to come down, then come down together. With that, the sword array in the sky surged into the entrance of the sky. The next moment, the sky seemed to be filled with dumplings. Dong dong dong. One after another, a series of people fell from the sky, crashing into the group of old and weak people in Haoran Court. Some of them could not dodge in time, and were hit squarely. Chanji, Jingda, everyone. What was going on? What just happened? How dare you? Among the immortals who were pulled down for no reason, the one with the highest cultivation level immediately regained his composure. Immortal chi exploded from his body. Who dares to plot against me? Yo, an acquaintance. I didn't expect. Lomun flew down and looked at the immortal who had just spoken. Country Emperor Yutsong, long time no see. The person who had come was the Emperor of East Sui, Yutsong, who had gone to Invincible Sect to report that something was wrong in the lower realm. Lomun did not expect that he would interfere in Fatty's matter. He suddenly remembered the sudden rise of East Sui in the Bo Sea. Now it seemed that the chaos in the rules of this small world was caused by them. More than half of the cultivators from East Sui, who had ascended from this small world, were probably related to Fatty's many past lives. Young Emperor, Lomun. Yutsong paused. His face paled as he recognized the person in front of him. Instinctively, he looked around and found I Ching standing nearby. Celestial Emperor I Ching. How is this possible? The realm gate Did you just open it? Lomun's expression darkened. Yutsong, do you think we don't know why the realm gate was closed? Yutsong lowered his head. A hint of panic flashed across his eyes. The people of this small world do not follow the right path. They use the blood and flesh of others as sacrifices to increase their cultivation level. They are delusional enough to hide from the heavens and cause the realm gate to close. Lomun scanned the people from Haoran Court, then looked at Yutsong and the others. If I'm not wrong, there are many immortal cultivators from East Sui who used this method to ascend. Yutsong's expression changed, but he forced a smile. Young Emperor Lomun, what are you talking about? We came to the lower realm today because the realm gate suddenly opened. We wanted to find out what was going on. What blood and flesh sacrificed to hide from the heavens? I don't know. Does Country Emperor, you really think that we don't know anything? Did these people ask their own immortal supremacies to open the heavenly gate just now? I do have subordinates who are Buddhist cultivators from this sect. But that has nothing to do with me. I have no idea what they are doing in the lower realm. Yutsong still refused to admit it. He looked at I Ching in the distance with some fear. Young Emperor Lomun, please don't accuse innocent people in front of the Celestial Emperor. Is that so? Lomun could not be bothered to talk nonsense with him. He waved his hand, and an unfamiliar, yet irresistible suppressive force swept towards them. Yutsong instinctively put up a defensive stance. But the suppressive force was not aggressive. The next moment, the immortal chi on their bodies dissipated. Then, the immortals who had just come to the lower realm emitted a faint golden light of merit. It was the same as the one on Chanji and the others. His heart sank. His face turned pale. How could this be? He had tried his best to get rid of it. How could it appear again? Country Emperor you, may I ask, where did the thick golden light of merit on your body come from? I was a Buddhist cultivator when I was in the lower realm. Yutsong's expression was completely messed up. He braced himself and said, "That's right. I changed my cultivation after that. Can't I?" "Of course you can change your cultivation." Lone Moon laughed coldly. "But are the subordinates behind you going to change their cultivation like you? What a coincidence." Chapter 495. Yutsong was stumped by him, and his expression darkened. His gaze towards Lone Moon already carried a hint of hatred, as if he had predicted that today's matter would not end peacefully. He changed his flustered look from earlier and glared at him, saying, "Young Lord Lone Moon's action, are you going to stand up for someone else? I just can't stand you vermin disturbing the order of this world." What order?" Yutsong laughed coldly. "Why can't I have a more effective way of ascending when I have the opportunity at the sacred arrival realm? It's all cultivation. Is it wrong just because we are faster and easier? The method you're talking about is to conspire with the cultivators of the lower realm to sacrifice someone alive and use the primordial spirit imprint to imprison him for eternity. How could such a person be worthy of being an immortal? Why can't we?" Yutsong retorted loudly. Not just him, the people behind him, including the people of Haoran Court, all looked as if it was a matter of course. Sacrificing him alone can help all of us achieve the great Tao. Why not do such a deal? If you want to blame someone, blame him. Why does he always have such a special constitution, born with a special body and spirit bones? And even his bones can emit merit. The more he spoke, the louder and more confident he became. He has such a special constitution, because of the heavenly Tao. Then we should use his flesh and blood to ascend. That should be our opportunity. The fact that we can successfully ascend to the upper realm is the best proof. This is the will of the heavens. What right do you have to say that it's our fault?" The moment he finished speaking, the others echoed, feeling that they were making more and more sense. That's right. He was born with such a constitution, he should be food for others. A special body and spirit bones. Such a heaven-defying constitution should not appear in a human. That's right. He actually has the body of a special treasure. Of course, he only has the fate of a special treasure. Spirit plants and plants can all be used as immortal ascension materials. Why can't he? The more they spoke, the more outrageous they became. They no longer treated Fatty as a person, but as an object, a spirit plant. Fatty, who had just woken up, paled as he listened. His whole body began to tremble. His body swayed and he almost lost his balance. Shining helped him up. After some thought, she suddenly tilted her head and said, "You're a human. Don't bother with small animals." Fatty was stunned for a moment, not understanding what she meant. Chef then explained, "What Master means is that those are not fit to be called humans, they are just beasts." Fatty was stunned. A trace of warmth flowed from the bottom of his heart, melting away the chill that had just risen in his heart. In fact, when he saw the corpses in the lotus pond, he had already sensed that they were his. Although he didn't have the memories of his past life, from what they said, he knew how he died. These were clearly high and mighty immortals who had skinned him alive so many times. How could they still be so bold and righteous, criticizing him for having such a body? Why didn't they feel the slightest burden in their hearts? They didn't even feel that it was wrong. But what did he do wrong? Was it because he had a special body? He couldn't help but think that if he hadn't met his master and Miss Shen in this life, he would still have become the material for immortal ascension that they spoke of. He wouldn't even be worthy to be called a person, right? He couldn't figure out why there was such a person in the world. Subconsciously, he moved a few steps behind Shining. Fortunately, there were still people who were different. On the other side, Chef glanced at him and frowned, but didn't stop his actions in the end. Young Emperor Lone Moon, we even passed the heavenly tribulation of ascension. That proves that there is nothing wrong with our method. Yutsong seemed to have found his courage. He even glanced at I Ching in the distance. Something that even the heavenly Tao doesn't care about is. Who said that the heavenly Tao doesn't care? Lone Moon's expression turned cold. He interrupted him directly. Do you really think that the heavenly Tao will be so blind to let you off after the disgusting and immoral things you have done? What do you mean? Yu Tsang was stunned. A trace of panic flashed across his eyes. But he felt that Lone Moon was bluffing. After all, Celestial Emperor I Ching didn't speak from the beginning to the end. He probably didn't want to interfere with mortal affairs. As long as he didn't come out, and it was just young Emperor Lone Moon alone, he might not be afraid. Didn't you suspect the heavenly Tao? Lone Moon's smile became even colder. This group of people had completely disgusted him. Then I'll let you see what heavenly punishment is. Damn it. If he didn't beat them up until they couldn't take care of themselves, his surname wasn't Niu. He couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense with them. He raised his hand. Instantly, a familiar pressure went towards them. Before Yu Tsang and the rest could react, they felt their bodies lighten. It was as if something was pulled out from their bodies. Looking closely, they saw that the golden light that was originally wrapped around them had all turned into spots of light. They floated towards Lone Moon and then disappeared. Yu Tsang was shocked. Those merit came from the flesh and blood of that special person in the previous life. After they ascended, they tried all kinds of methods but to no avail. They could only hide it. They didn't expect Lone Moon to take it away so easily. Although merit was useful, in the upper realm, so many of them had the golden light of merit. It was indeed too eye-catching. Now that it was gone, it was to his liking. Although he didn't know what Lone Moon's goal was, he couldn't help but feel ecstatic. But the next moment his heart sank again. Lone Moon directly summoned the sword array that filled the sky. Only this time, it wasn't the sword array that was condensed from spirit chi. Instead, it was immortal chi. There was a fire in his heart. He didn't plan to hold back. In an instant, the entire heaven and earth was filled with sharp sword chi. Young Emperor Lone Moon is forcing us to make a move. Yu Tsang's face darkened. He totally didn't think much of Lone Moon. The people behind him exchanged glances. One by one, they summoned their Dharma artifacts and directly flew over. Lone Moon snorted. With a turn of his hand, the fan in his hand instantly turned into a long sword. Just as he was about to attack, he suddenly stopped. What are you doing? He raised his head to look at the sky. What was wrapped around his hand was the power of the rule. At the same time, the surroundings darkened. Large patches of thunder clouds suddenly appeared strangely in the sky. Layers and layers of thunder clouds suddenly appeared in the sky. Not a single ray of light could be seen. Between the layers of clouds, lightning of various colors flashed continuously. It brought with it a terrifying coercion of heaven and earth. Yu Tsang and the rest were stunned. They were shocked by the sudden appearance of the lightning tribulation that covered the entire sky. They stopped in midair and didn't dare to move. The coercion of heaven and earth above the clouds was really too terrifying. It was as if it was going to destroy heaven and earth. Even Yu Tsang had the urge to kneel down and worship under this kind of pressure. But this was a different scene in Lone Moon's eyes. There was no coercion of heaven and earth at all. Instead, from the layers of thunder clouds, he felt a trace of excitement. Even the power of the rule wrapped around his hand became exceptionally lively. It was as if there was a tiny voice constantly pleading in his ear. Let me do it, let me do it, let me do it. Let me kill them. That you're tuning in to the Journey of the Soul YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.